this 5? Any further members seek recognition?
Mr. Chair,
Chair, recognize Ms. Crockett.
I have an amendment at the desk.
So there's 5. Will the clerk, everyone has the amendment, everyone has the Crockett amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please report the amendment?
An amendment to the rules of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform for the 119th Congress is offered by Ms. Crockett of Texas.
Without objection, the amendment is considered as read. I reserve a point of order. The gentlewoman is recognized for 5 minutes to explain her amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. During the 118th Congress, Oversight Republicans disbanded one of the most important subcommittees in Congress, the Subcommittee on Civil Rights and Civil Liberties. And now in the 119th Congress, the chairman and House Republicans have decided to prioritize the demands of the real president, Elon Musk, and his billionaire friends over the needs of the American people. Now, we are about to approach the birthday of Martin Luther King. It's actually tomorrow. And on January 20th will be the inauguration of Donald Trump, but it will also be the observation of MLK Day. And the fact that we have decided that in this country we are not going to honor civil rights should be something that we all take issue with. Considering the fact, for some that don't know what civil rights are about, because some people only believe that it deals with black folk, let me explain. Civil and political rights are a class of rights that protect individuals' freedom from the infringement by governments, social organizations, and private individuals. They ensure one's entitlement to participate in the civil and political life of society and the state. Defined another way, the right to be free from discrimination, the freedom to worship as we choose, the right to vote for our elected representatives, the protections of due process, the right to privacy. If any of that sounds familiar, it is because these are rights that are born out of our Constitution, something that we all supposedly have sworn an oath to, and we swear to not only, we don't just swear to it, we are supposed to protect those rights. Interestingly enough, we just had the funeral of one of our beloved presidents. And I caught a flight to Austin on the day of the funeral. And I had the honor of sitting next to someone who was a little familiar with the White House. That person was Lucy Baines Johnson. And when I tell you that she is a wealth of information, I really mean that. And when we had an opportunity to talk about what she experienced as her father was president during a time in which, honestly, our country was on fire, and I would argue that, unfortunately, our country is on fire right now. When I first ran for office, I ran for the State House and said that we were in the midst of a modern-day civil rights movement, and I have not been convinced otherwise just yet. But this is the daughter of the president that signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. She was also there when he signed the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And to be perfectly honest, without that voting rights, I don't believe that I actually would have a seat in Congress. And so I do believe in preserving the fact that everyone should be entitled to real and true representation, because I do have a Section 2 seat as our Voting Rights Act has been decimated. But one of the stories that she told me was that her father asked her about coming over to the Congress for the signing of the bill as it relates to the Voting Rights Act. Now, for her, it was a bit inconvenient as an 18-year-old to have to leave the White House and go over to Congress. And she asked her father, why should we go over to the Congress, Daddy, to sign this particular bill? And she said, we need to go over to the Congress because we need to pay due respect to those members of Congress that knew that voting for this bill meant that they would not be returning to Congress, but they had the courage to do what was right for this country and make sure that everyone's voices were going to be heard. The one thing that we could do, the very small thing that we could do, is have a little bit of courage and decide that we are going to reinstitute this particular subcommittee, because unfortunately, I don't see the type of courage that the people that served back in the 60s had coming out of some of our colleagues. And so I'm asking you to do the courageous thing today and just institute a subcommittee that would make sure that we are looking out for those protections of everyone in this country, to make sure that we have real freedom, something that we all supposedly espouse to believe in. And with that, I will yield.
Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady's time's expired. Any member seek recognition?
Yes.
Mr. Higgins? Oh, Ms. Mace was first. I'm sorry. Ms. Mace.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I don't know what's going on today. I find it extremely rich and offensive. So we're talking about civil rights. I'm the former ranking member on the Civil Rights Subcommittee, something I believe in civil rights and civil liberties of all Americans. And we were talking about infringement of individual people. Also, quote, the right to privacy of individuals. Coming from a party that can't define what a woman is and won't give women the right to privacy. You all want men with penises, chicks with dicks, in the bathroom with us. You want women to be forced to undress in front of men in the locker room and in dressing rooms. And it's so hypocritical for you to sit here and say and be, screaming from the rooftops about the right to privacy and civil rights when you don't respect women. And you don't respect women who've been raped, women who are victims of sexual abuse. And you want me, a victim of rape, a survivor of rape, to go into a locker room and be forced to undress in front of a man? You have to be effing kidding me. So I don't want to hear about you talk about rights, individual rights, civil rights, because you can't find the courage from the 60s to fight for women all around America, fight for women like me, every single woman. And as a rape survivor, I shouldn't have to explain to you why women have rights and why women, when we're in the bathroom, when we're in the locker room, when we're in a dressing room, why I don't feel safe when there is a man nearby. And the fact that we're going here and we're going to say all these things is the ripeness of hypocrisy on the Hill. People need to tell the truth. And if we're going to talk about the rights of individuals, we have to talk about it. Everybody has rights, including women. And at some point, men are infringing on the rights of women. We just had it today. We just had a vote about protecting women and girls in sports. And I believe it wasn't one, it was two people from the Democrat Party who voted to protect women's rights in sports today. Two. So this is, Mr. Chairman, this is a deeply offensive conversation to me today. We want to talk about real freedom. Women have freedom in this country. Women have the freedom to go to a private women's only space and not see a man in it. Women have the right to change and not be feared that somebody with their sexual perversion, someone who's confused about their gender, we have the right to feel safe in these spaces. We have the right to know that we're not going to have trans people filming us in the bathroom. How many of these trannies are taking selfies? These men are taking selfies in women's spaces, in the bathroom. It's gross. It's disgusting. So if we're going to talk about civil rights, let's talk about the rights of women in this country and how you are stripping them away every single day. And you're doing it in your legislation, you're doing it in your messaging, you're doing it on X. You're making women feel unsafe in this country. And you're making the opportunity for women and girls to be raped, to be sexually abused in this country even greater than they've ever been. So don't come over here with your attitude and talk to me about rights when you're trying to take my rights as a woman, a rape survivor, away. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Any member seek recognition? Ms. Stansberry.
You and Mr. Sessions worked together. I did not make comments to you. I specifically mentioned the ranking member. I'll yield back.
Chair recognizes Ms. Mace.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think we should be taking the advice from a group of people who can't define what a woman is. You certainly can't define what government efficiency is. So let's just start right there, Mr. Chairman. I support the subcommittee, the creation of the subcommittee on DOGE. I wildly support Marjorie Taylor Greene as the subcommittee chairwoman. And again, to the party who says we don't like or support women, well, guess what? We have 2 women on this committee who are subcommittee chairwomen who carry gavels. And we're working for the President of the United States, the President who made the first female chief of staff ever in the history of the United States. And I also want to correct the record of the ranking member earlier. There's no Republican up here who has cut Social Security. That is a lie. That is a lie being promulgated by the left, aided and abetted by the mainstream media, and all those liars out there on social media on the left saying that is not true. And when we want to talk about oligarchy, we had Joe Biden, we had Nancy Pelosi, we had Chuck Schumer controlling everything on the Hill and the Capitol for years. And guess what? They've all delivered. They delivered the worst economy in history for Donald Trump. They have delivered more terrorists coming across the southern border than any administration in history. And so this subcommittee is greatly needed, Mr. Chairman. I hope that we all support it unanimously. Ms. Greene, you're going to do a great job as subcommittee chairwoman. I would love to be waved on anytime you let me, because it's time that we stop wasting American taxpayers. It is time that we stop wasting time up here on the Hill. We stop wasting time here in Congress talking about BS. And someone brought up dignity earlier. I would love to see dignity and respect for women up here on the Hill, which is why we should ban men from women's spaces, which is why we should ban men from the locker rooms, from women's locker rooms, which is why we should ban men from women's dressing rooms. I'm done with this. We got to get back to common sense. We got to get back to fighting and working hard for the American people, and we've got to do it together. So you guys can talk all you want on the left side of the aisle. You're not going to be successful because there was a mandate in November, the most historic mandate by Donald John Trump. And the American people want us to get our stuff together. Notice how I'm not cursing today. They want us to get our stuff together and work for the American people. And that starts now. That can start with the DOGE subcommittee. That can start with every committee on the Hill today if we put in the effort and the work to do it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Anybody? Chair? Ms. Crockett? Seek recognition. Ms. Mace from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On this conflict of interest that we have before us today, I'm hearing about conflict of interest, quote, most basic ethics standards, quote, basic ethics, resources for personal profit, making sure financial interests are at stake, et cetera. Mr. Chairman, I find it rich that the same members of Congress who defended the Biden crime family, who are making millions of dollars from international business deals while trading on public office, are now here lecturing us today about conflicts of interest. Like they should just sit right back down. They have no room on this issue. I would love to know if they think Nancy Pelosi trading stocks is a conflict of interest. So, if the Biden family, international business dealings, you're trading off the vice presidency and presidency is not a conflict of interest. I would love to know where they stand on that, Mr. Chairman, because this is ridiculous. We need to work for the American people. We need to get to work fast. There was a mandate in November, on November 5th, to push our country forward, to get out of the worst economy in my lifetime that the left forced upon the American people. They can't afford groceries. They can't afford gas. They can definitely not afford child care. And the education system in this country is down the tubes. Taxes are hurting American families on top of it. We have at least 14 million illegals in this country. Is probably far higher than that. We can't keep count. We don't even know where the 300,000 kids are. And so what they have done to destroy the fabric of the United States of America, everything we were founded on, freedom and liberty, the ability to prosper, to work, live, and retire in the greatest nation in the world, they have destroyed that. And it is our job to get back to the basics. And quite frankly, I don't think government efficiency is enough. I think we're going to have to go much further than that. And in fact, look at dismantling entire departments or even agencies, because it's just the bureaucracy we have created with the deep state of bureaucracy here is hurting our country. It's hurting our national security. We're weaker on the world stage. Our economy is going to be a national security issue in very close order. I was hoping that American families would be able to refi with lower interest rates this quarter on their homes and be able to afford housing. It doesn't look like that's going to happen because of what the Biden-Harris administration has done in the run-up to President Trump swearing in on January 20th. This is un-American. It's disgusting. It's gross. Let's move forward. Let's get these votes done this afternoon. Let's get to work for the American people, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, and I yield back.
General yields back. Any other members seek recognition? Chair recognizes Mr. Higgins from Louisiana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My colleagues can expect.
The chair now recognizes Ms. Mace from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Martin O'Malley, I want to wish you luck in your campaign to be chair of the Democrat National Committee. And let me just say, I think you are the perfect candidate to chair the Democrat Party. Your liberal record is truly astonishing.
Thank you.
At an event in 2005, you compared a federal budget request which cut spending to the terrorist attacks of 9/11. You raised taxes, tolls, and fees on your constituents 83 times as governor of Maryland, including increasing sales taxes, income taxes, the gas tax. You also created an array of new taxes on services for your constituents.
And the number one public
I'm
schools
talking,
in
I'm going to
America.
reclaim my time. I'm talking right now. I've not asked you a question yet, have I? No, I have not.
No, you haven't.
For your constituents, making your constituents, the people you served in Maryland, pay more. You love some law-breaking illegal aliens as well. You've advocated for mass amnesty for illegal aliens. My favorite part of your love for criminals in this country is you don't refer to them as illegal aliens, but instead you refer to them as new Americans. You must really hate American citizens. You must really hate our country. In 2011, you signed a bill into law to allow illegal aliens to qualify for in-state tuition at public universities in Maryland. And the hits are going to keep on coming. In 2014, you signed a bill into law to allow illegal aliens to get Maryland driver's license. In 2014, you signed a bill into law to allow gender-confused, sexually perverted men to use women's restrooms and locker rooms. In other words, you forced women and underage girls to undress in front of men. I could go on. Suffice to say, you're perfectly in line with the Democrat Party today and emblematic of why Democrats just can't stop losing elections. You are emblematic of why the Democrat Party has no dignity and no respect for women. You are emblematic of why Democrats don't put Americans first. Mr. O'Malley, my first question this morning, can you, a candidate to be chair of the Democrat Party, define what a woman is for me today?
Madam, or
Can you
Congresswoman-
define what a woman is?
Oh, yes.
What is a woman?
You're going to ask me to define what a woman
Yes,
is?
I am right now.
Well, I'm
You
talking,
just said you could.
yes,
Explain it to me.
I'm talking to a woman right now, distinguished woman.
What is a
elected
woman?
Representative.
What is a woman?
I think you're kind of denigrating the purpose of this.
What is
hearing.
it? You can't define what a woman is. All right. In an
I'm
effort to
married
be fair,
to a woman.
in an
I
effort
have
to be
two
fair and
daughters who are
unbiased,
women.
in an effort to be fair and unbiased, can you define what a man is for me?
I have 2 sons
Okay.
that are men. Yes,
I have a
can.
series of yes or no questions. So the potentially future chair of the Democrat Party cannot define, let's for the record, Mr. Chairman, he cannot define what a woman is, and he cannot define what a man is.
This is
And you expect people in this country to follow your lead? I'm a woman who has broken so many glass ceilings in my life. The first Republican woman elected to Congress from South Carolina, the first woman to ever graduate from the Citadel of the Military College of South Carolina. I know what a woman is, and I'm going to protect every one of them. So I have a series of yes or no questions for you. Today, one of my Democrat colleagues yesterday stated a rape victim's fear of rape was just, quote, fantasy. Do you agree with this statement? Is a woman's fear of rape, being raped, a fantasy? Yes or no?
No, it's not a fact.
Okay, one of my Democrat colleagues yesterday stated a rape victim's fear of rape is being, quote, dramatic. Do you agree with that statement? Fear of rape being dramatic? Yes or no?
Well, what could be.
Okay, you can't answer the question. My next question, you've spoken of Democrats needing to restore credibility and learn from your failings, and to quote from you recently, learn from your very bad loss. Is this in reference to Democrats raising taxes on the middle class? Yes or no?
No.
Is this in reference to Maryland not requiring an ID to vote in their elections?
No,
Is this in reference to coddling criminal illegal aliens?
no, I've
Is
never,
this in reference to starting a war on real biological women?
no,
Is this in reference to allowing men in women's bathrooms?
no.
Is this in reference to forcing women and girls to undress in front of men in the locker room?
Oh, come on,
Yes or no?
Congresswoman.
This is your party's platform. You
Yes.
understand what I'm laying out for you. Do you understand
I
English?
understand what you're trying to lay out, but
No,
our
this
party's
is-
platform is the economic security
No,
and the
I'm gonna reclaim
well-being
my time,
of
Mr.
every
Chairman.
man,
Mr.
woman,
Chairman, I'm
and
gonna reclaim my
child
time.
in the United States of
I'm gonna
America.
reclaim my
That's
time.
our party's platform.
I'm going to reclaim my
Ms.
time.
Mace's
Mr. Chairman.
time.
Mr. Chairman, the witness should not be badgered.
Mr. Chairman,
Chair
I would like to
recognizes Ms.
reclaim my
Mace.
time.
Ms. Mace.
Just yesterday, only 2 Democrats voted with us to protect women in sports. This is your platform. You want boys and men women to be able to watch women undress in a locker room. So is your big loss in reference to taking away women's achievements in sports?
I believe.
Yes or no?
No, I
Is
don't.
your loss in reference to allowing men to take away women's scholarships? Yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, the gentlelady's time has expired.
He took my time, Mr. Chairman.
She had about 15 seconds that rolled around, so you got one time for one last question, Ms. Mace.
Think hard.
She asked the question.
You have learned nothing from your own failings when you tried to run for president as a far-left progressive alternative to Hillary Clinton and dropped out after getting 1/2% at the Iowa caucus. So good luck with that, Mr. DNC Chairman. I yield
Thank
back.
you. I appreciate your well wishes.
Gentlelady yields back. Chair recognizes Ms. Mace from South Carolina for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's been a lot of pearl clutching over the last several days from my colleagues across the aisle on Donald Trump, Secretary Rubio, the Department of Government Efficiency's plan to reorganize the U.S. Agency for International Development, or as we all now know, USAID. They're screaming about Elon Musk over there, but hey, George Soros and his boy are okay. They scream that we're all a threat to democracy when they've been systematically dismantling democracy before our eyes. They've been caught with their hand in the cookie jar. And there's no going back. So I would tell my colleagues across the other side of the aisle, take your salty tears and sit right back down. USAID has long strayed from its mission to effectively and efficiently administer aid to advance American interests. USAID has become rotten to its core, sacrificing the prudent use of taxpayer dollars at the altar of advancing radical, sinister social and political agendas abroad. From discriminatory DEI initiatives to extreme gender ideology to marginalize real bona fide biological women. For decades, while homeless veterans sleep on our streets, our communities rebuild from natural disasters, and American families struggle to get by, USAID has pillaged and plundered the American treasury, essentially lighting American taxpayer dollars on fire, funding some of the stupidest, just dumbest initiatives imaginable, all supported by the left, and that's why their party is crumbling. Today, I'm going to expose some of the initiatives USAID has funded over the years and ask each of you a yes or no question. If you believe these expenditures of American taxpayer dollars put America first, so it'll be yes or no. USAID awarded $2 million to strengthen trans-led organizations to deliver gender-affirming health care in Guatemala. So to each of you this morning, does this advance the interests of American citizens paying for trannies in Guatemala to the tune of $2 million? Yes or no? Governor?
I have no position.
Of course you don't. Okay, USAID awarded over $750,000 to fund alleviating loneliness among migrant garment workers in India. Does this advance America's interests, Governor?
No.
No. I have no position.
USAID awarded $1.5 million for providing a gender-sensitive response to migration at the Venezuelan border. Does this advance America's interests, Governor?
No.
No. I have no position.
Does this advance the interest? Okay, so USAID awarded $4.3 million on October 1st, 2023 to a group to fund comprehensive health services for men having sex with other men in South Africa. Does this advance the interests of American citizens, Governor?
No.
No. I have no position.
I bet you don't. Okay. USAID awarded $1.5 million to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities by promoting economic empowerment and opportunity for LGBTQI plus people in Serbia. Does this advance America's interests?
No.
No. Nope.
You have no idea, right? Okay. USAID awarded over $70,000 to a group to deliver a live musical event to promote the U.S. and Irish shared values of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Does this advance the interests of America?
No.
No. No position.
No position or no clue. Okay, USAID awarded $1.5 million to fund strengthening community support structures to upscale LGBT rights advocacy in Jamaica. Does this advance our interests?
No.
No. No position.
USAID awarded $28 million to a group to facilitate the economic insertion of Venezuelan migrants and refugees in Peru and Ecuador. Does this advance our interests?
No.
No. No position.
Okay, USAID awarded $17.5 million to fund voluntary medical male circumcision overseas. Does this advance America's interests?
No.
No. No position.
I don't know what circumcision overseas has to do with America First either. USAID awarded nearly $150,000 to fund HIV prevention services targeting men who have sex with men and transgender. Does this advance America's interests?
No.
No. No position.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm limited to 5 minutes, but these are the programs Democrats are so desperate to save. Our foreign assistance system is badly broken, and this ends now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back.
Mr. Chairman, parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, sir.
The gentlelady has used a phrase that is considered a slur in the LGBTQ community and the transgender community. And let me please finish without interruption. And
Tranny. I don't really care. You want penises in women's bathrooms, and I'm not going to have it.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Let
Mr. Chairman.
let the gentleman state his parliamentary inquiry.
to me, a slur is a slur. And here in the committee, a level of decorum requires us to try consciously to avoid slurs. You just heard the gentlelady actually actively, robustly repeat it. And I would just ask the chairman that she be counseled that we ought not to be engaged. We can have debate and policy discussion without offending human beings who are our fellow citizens. And so I would ask, as a parliamentary inquiry, whether the use of that phrase is not, in fact, a violation of the decorum rules.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to be counseled by a man over men and women's spaces or men who have mental health issues dressing as women. I'm not being counseled by some guy.
My inquiry is to the
over-
chairman,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Order. The inquiry is about decorum. Decorum is at the discretion of the chair.
That's
I will be
mansplaining,
honest,
Mr. Chairman.
with the ranking member. I'm not up to date on my politically correct LGBTQ terminology. We'll look into that and get back with you on that. I don't know what's offensive and what's not. I don't know much about pronouns or
I appreciate that, Mr.
offensive
Chairman.
terms. in
Mr.
that
Chairman, we don't have to
community.
anymore.
So,
I thank the chair for his willingness to further engage in this matter.
all right.
Thank you all for being here today. I will now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questioning. Mr. Goodman, in your written statement, you state the White Coat Waste Project identified at least $10 million in NIH grants for transgender animal experiments. You state that 95% of the funding came from Dr. Fauci's NIAID. Why is the federal government spending taxpayer dollars to create transgender animals?
It's a great question.
Your microphone.
Thank you. It's a great question. I mean, I wonder why they're making cats constipated also. It's a question that rings around in my head at night when I'm going to bed, why we're funding these things. A lot of the programs that are funded do latch on to some type of social trend, and then animal experimenters use it as a money grab, as an excuse to get NIH tax funds from some in this case, DEI grants were used to fund a lot of this stuff. So people who abuse animals find some kind of excuse to bring in new money, and they'll switch their research program over to something that's trendy to bring tax dollars into their university. I mean, that's part of the big problem here, is that colleges and universities are taking 25 to 40% off the top of every single one of these grants for indirect costs that go into a slush fund that has nothing to do with the research. So they're willing to let experimenters do whatever they want to animals to keep the money flowing in.
Some people might describe that as money laundering. All right, are sex change experiments that forcibly transition mice, rats, and monkeys necessary for science?
Absolutely not.
Why do these experiments at all, if they aren't producing useful human relevant research, why again, you think it's a money issue, follow the money?
Animal testing is big business.
As you know, I've been long vocal about animal experiments and federal funded animal testing, and worked with you to prevent Fauci's plan to waste almost $2 million in taxpayer dollars to maim and murder beagle puppies, for example. Why was Dr. Fauci so insistent on poisoning these puppies, even though, as you state in your written statement, the FDA does not mandate that human drugs be studied on dogs?
So much of the problem with all of this is institutional inertia. It's that people just continue doing the same thing because that's what they've done before. There was a report that came out, the National Academy of Sciences put out a few years ago about the VA's testing on dogs that Congressman Khanna actually helped us get the NAS to conduct. And they found that most of the VA's testing on dogs was unnecessary. And not only that it was unnecessary, but one of the reasons why is that there's this circular reasoning that they use to defend it when they propose a new project. They say, well, we use dogs previously, so we're just going to use dogs again. And there's no one to break that cycle. There's not enough oversight to say, hey, maybe we don't need to do this anymore. Maybe there's a better way to do it. It's like, if you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and that's kind of the problem.
Right. And what would have happened to these beagle puppies if if your organization hadn't rescued them?
In the case of those experiments, those dogs were going to be force-fed and injected with massive doses of experimental drugs to poison them to see at what point they got sick or died. And those tests will have no relevance for the safety and efficacy of that drug in human beings.
Thank you. Dr. Locke, I have a few questions for you. Can the scientific challenges we face today be solved by relying on animal testing?
No, not all of them.
Can you briefly describe how new technologies can allow us to transition away from animal testing without hindering scientific research?
Certainly. I also want to point out that in my written testimony, I do try to lay out a roadmap for how that could happen. But basically what we need to do is we need to spend a lot more resources supporting these non-animal technologies, such as organs on a chip and organoids, so we can use those to study many of the phenomena that we're now studying in animals.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Baker, what are your thoughts today, reading your testimony for the opportunity to testify that it's long overdue? Where do we go from here? How do we fix the problem?
I think we fix the problem by investing in what is going right. We've got to cut a lot of this terrible animal research. We need to cut the National Primate Research Centers. We are funding these centers to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars every year. We've got to stop funding animal experiments outside the United States, as Mr. Goodman said, that have no oversight. We've got to stop. If you can meet your objectives without using animals, there's absolutely no reason that you should. And so,
I was going to say, thank you for bringing that up, the amount of money, the hundreds of millions. I recently found out in the state of South Carolina, in my district, there's a primate breeding center and testing site, Alpha Genesis. They've made, to my understanding, over $100 million from NIH over the last 20 or so years. This is a boondoggle. It is a racket. And hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, in fact, have been wasted on it. So I want to thank you all for your testimony today. Thank you for being here. I would now like to recognize my colleague, Ms. Brown, for 5 minutes. The Subcommittee on Cybersecurity, Information Technology, and Government Innovation will now come to order. And welcome, a good afternoon. Without objection, the chair may declare a recess at any time. I recognize myself for the purpose of making an opening statement. Good afternoon. Late last year, the White Coat Waste Project exposed more than $10 million in taxpayer funds that were spent creating transgender mice, rats, and monkeys. These DEI grants funded painful and deadly transgender experiments that forced lab animals to undergo invasive surgeries and hormone therapies at universities across the country. For example, the Biden-Harris administration spent $2.5 million taxpayer dollars, $2.5 million taxpayer dollars to study the fertility of transgender mice. Let that sink in. We spent over $2 million studying the fertility of transgender mice. $1.1 million was spent to find out if female rats receiving testosterone therapies to mimic transgender men were more likely to overdose on a party drug, commonly used in the LGBTQ community to induce drug-fueled what's called, quote, chemsex. I asked my staff what was chemsex and the chemical, and I guess it's something called GHB, which is a date rape drug, and also a drug that's used recreationally. So we spent over $1 million to find out if female rats receiving testosterone therapy were more likely to overdose on a date rape drug. Like, that's what your taxpayer dollars were being spent on. Federal funds were also used to forcibly transition male monkeys to see if hormone therapy made them more susceptible to HIV. Now, I didn't know this until recently, but monkeys cannot be infected with HIV. Yet this federally funded experiment forced them to take hormone-altering drugs to study a virus they cannot have. The Biden-Harris administration was so eager to propagate their radical gender ideology across all facets of American society that they were surgically mutating animal genitals. Like, taxpayer money went to that. So my question is, were they castrating mice, castrating monkeys? Were they getting double mastectomies? The language that they used in many of these experiments were, quote, gender-affirming care, which I learned about 3 years ago what that meant. I thought that was maybe just some hormones or something something like that, but apparently gender-affirming care is actually surgical mutilation of genitals, and apparently it's not just humans they're doing it to. We were doing it with taxpayer dollars to animals. It's well known that because of the differences between animal and human biology, animal testing frequently does not produce results relevant for humans. In fact, 90% of novel drugs that are successful in animal tests fail in human clinical trials. Today's scientific questions are so complex that we have well surpassed a time where it is useful or appropriate to rely on inhumane animal experiments to answer them. Recently developed technological tools can more accurately model human biology and identify solutions that are more useful for human patients. But it is often the federal bureaucracy that prevents these new technologies from being used. Instead of adequately investing in these innovative alternatives, the federal government has continued to funnel taxpayer dollars towards cruel animal experiments. Today, most of the 27 NIH institutes and centers conduct or support animal testing, as does the Food and Drug Administration, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the Department of Veterans Affairs, the Department of Defense, and countless other agencies. We have some beagle puppies here with us today. Beagle puppies have gone through some of the worst medical experiments. I mean, drugging them with cocaine, having insects eat at them and their bodies so much until they die, drugging them until they die. These are God's creatures, and they're beautiful, and you can see them sitting in the front row today. So we thank the folks who are here and brought these beautiful beagle puppies here today. In fact, the U.S. government spends in excess of $20 billion a year conducting experiments on animals. The White Coat Waste Project found in 2021 that the NIH, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, a component of NIH at the time, ran by Dr. Fauci, spent $1.68 million force-feeding toxic drugs to beagle puppies between 6 and 8 months old before dissecting and killing them. The conversation we're having today is important. In 2022, due to public criticism lobbied against Fauci's NIAID by me and other members of Congress, another $1.8 million experiment to abuse beagle puppies in various drug tests was canceled. So I want to thank the work of White Coat Waste and everyone in the room today, others who've been on the forefront of this fight to end this sick and cruel and barbaric testing of animals today. Thanks to one of our witnesses, Justin Goodman of White Coat Waste. We have in the audience, I already know, the Beagles are here. The Beagles are a reminder of the real cost of animal experimentation. So I'm looking forward to this conversation this afternoon regarding wasteful government spending on animal cruelty. And I also want to say, before I yield over to the ranking member for her opening statement, that this is a nonpartisan issue. Ironically, on oversight, while we might fight a lot in public, we are actually very nonpartisan here, and some of the most nonpartisan work in Congress comes right through this committee. So I want to thank the ranking member, look forward to working with you, and I yield to you for 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Generosity, yeah, and indulgence.
Okay, thank you. I'll now recognize myself for 5 minutes. Thank you, Comptroller General Dorado, for being with us today. And I apologize for you having to bear witness to the tantrums that unfolded in this committee earlier today. The Oversight Committee has convened today to discuss something throwing the left into a tailspin, spending more time protesting and disrupting official proceedings than legislating. All because we're talking about cutting waste, fraud, and abuse and government mismanagement. For decades, this wasn't a partisan issue. You know who championed cutting back on waste, fraud, and abuse? No other than President Obama and Joe Biden. In 2011, Obama signed Executive Order 13576 to create a Government Accountability and Transparency Board under Joe Biden's watch to root out waste, to root out fraud, and to root out abuse in federal agencies. Joe Biden himself even admitted back then, quote, cutting waste, fraud, and abuse has been something Washington has talked about for decades, but now more than ever, what the American people need is action, end quote. But now the left has done a complete 180, claiming cutting waste, fraud, and abuse is fascist. They say it's a threat to democracy. They even say our nation's chief executive shouldn't be allowed to direct or control the executive branch, or even ask an unelected bureaucrat who works for him what they did at work last week. We just want to know, what are the top 5 things you did at the office? You should know in about 5 minutes. And if you can't answer that question, you probably shouldn't be employed by the federal government or any company or organization. I would never hire you. Their disruption has nothing to do with policy and everything to do with Trump derangement syndrome. And I fear that their disruption is pathological. It's about their need to oppose anything tied to President Trump. They'd rather protect bloated bureaucracy and light our tax dollars on fire than admit he was right. So I'll repeat, they have Trump derangement syndrome, and I fear this is terminal. Now turning to an issue of great importance to me as chairwoman of the Cybersecurity, Information Technology, and Government Innovation Subcommittee, Mr. Dodaro, the 2025 high-risk list highlights serious failures in federal cybersecurity and technology modernization, as you are, I'm sure, fully aware. Federal agencies spend billions of dollars a year on software without a comprehensive or detailed understanding of what they're purchasing and how it compares to what they're already paying for. In other words, a lot of duplication. GAO has reported without improvements to IT portfolio and investment reviews, saying the federal government will likely continue to expand resources and IT investments that do not meet the needs of the government or the public. What steps should agencies take right now to actually understand the software they're buying instead of just throwing taxpayer dollars at it, hoping for the best? What's your advice?
Yeah, I'm going to turn to Carol Harris, who's our Director in Information Technology, and she can enumerate for you.
Terrific.
Thank you for the question. So a number of things that can be done. First of all, with regard to IT management, I mean, we have a major issue where we have $100 billion annually going to the IT budget across the federal government. 80% of that money is going towards sustaining old systems. So we have to tackle the legacy issues.
How old are some of these systems?
Some of these systems range, up to even like 50 years old. So they're old and they need to be.
These are the legacy systems.
These are
right,
correct. These are the legacy systems.
What kind of
that's right.
technology were they coded with?
With COBOL, for example, and other antiquated computer languages. And that's part of the issue where now for these particular systems, the government is having a difficult time finding staff that and knowledgeable people to actually work on these programs because these computer languages are out of date.
After I taught myself HTML in college, because there weren't college classes on how to code HTML, and I consider it a real programming language, some people may not, but I learned COBOL when I was back in 1999. I worked on Y2K stuff, and I mean, that was almost 26 years ago, 27 years ago when I did that. And the fact that we're still using it decades later. Real quickly, I only have 45 seconds left. What are some of the security and operational risks resulting from the last administration's failure to review and manage federal government IT?
Well, when you take a look at those legacy systems, for example, because we're continuing to manage them, there are cybersecurity vulnerabilities associated with those, as well as the staffing challenges, as well as, just increased costs associated with maintaining these. So the security vulnerabilities in maintaining these old systems are very real, and we have to address them. And we've made multiple recommendations. We have 700 recommendations that are still open that need to be addressed immediately.
And thank you both for your time today. I will yield back. I will now recognize Mr. Khanna for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I wanted to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All of the mayors here today are actively working to harm the American people you represent. You all have blood on your hands. I'm going to ask a series of yes or no questions today, and I would like to remind all of you, you are under oath. I only want a yes or a no to my questions. My first question, do you acknowledge breaking into our country as a crime? Mayor Adams, yes or no? Do you acknowledge breaking into our country as a crime?
I acknowledge.
Yes or no?
I acknowledge.
Okay, Honorable Johnson, he's not going to answer the question. Yes or no? Is breaking into our country against the law? Yes or no?
Depends how you cross the border.
Okay,
Some folks
Mayor
have
Johnson,
status.
yes or no?
Comprehensive immigration
not an
reform
answer.
policies
Mayor
are what's
Wu?
necessary in this
Mayor Wu,
moment.
do you have a better answer than these gentlemen before you? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, do you believe it's acceptable for illegals who commit heinous crimes be released back into the public instead of being detained and deported? Mayor Adams, yes or no?
Anyone break a crime?
Yes or no? This is not hard. Yes or no?
Anyone that break a crime should be detained.
Okay, Mayor, yes or no?
They should be deported.
Okay, Mayor.
Any individual that
Yes or
causes
no?
harm
Yes or
and
no?
breaks
Okay,
the
Mayor
law
Wu?
should be held accountable.
This is why you have 6% approval rating, because you suck at answering questions. Mayor Wu? Yes or no?
Anyone who's a public safety threat should be prosecuted.
All right, I have my next question. When an illegal alien rapes a woman, do you believe you're on the right side of history? Mayor Adams, yes or no?
Can we say that question again?
Okay, Mayor Johnston. When an illegal alien rapes a woman, do you believe you're on the right side of history? Yes or no?
I will charge and prosecute them.
Yes or no? Okay, well, okay. You said you would go to jail, didn't you?
I will
For
charge and
harboring illegal
prosecute them.
aliens or something, Mayor Johnson?
Could you repeat your question, please?
When an illegal alien rapes a woman, do you believe you're on the right side of history?
Could you clarify that question?
Okay, Mayor Wu, yes or no?
No, rape is obviously
Then
horrible.
why are you letting rapists back out onto the streets of Boston?
That is not true. That is
Okay.
not what's happening in
When
Boston.
an illegal alien molests a kid, molests an underage kid, do you pat yourself on the back for being compassionate? Mayor Adams?
It's despicable and he should be arrested.
Mayor Johnston?
I prosecute folks that commit crimes like that.
You guys let him out on the streets. Mayor Johnson?
We arrest violent criminals in the city of Chicago.
Mayor Wu?
We investigate, arrest, and prosecute.
You guys don't sound very confident today. Would your city honor an ICE detainer on an illegal alien who rapes kids if one was issued today? Mayor Adams? Yes or no?
In conformance with law, we will honor detainers.
Mayor Johnson?
If there's a criminal warrant, we'll help them pick them up. If there's no criminal warrant, we'll honor a notification request.
Mayor Johnson?
Criminal warrants, we always cooperate with federal agents with a criminal warrant.
Mayor Wu?
Get a criminal warrant, we will enforce.
A criminal warrant. I'm talking about an ICE detainer on an individual who's here illegal who rapes kids. Do you all hate Donald Trump more than you love your country? Mayor Adams?
I respect my president. I respect my
Yes
country.
or no?
and I
You're having the
respect
hardest time
my
today.
Senate.
Mayor Johnston?
I love my country.
Yes or no?
I love my
Okay.
country.
Mayor Johnson?
As the son of a pastor, I love everyone and this country.
Mayor Wu?
I love my country and my city.
Do you all Are you all willing to go to jail for violating federal law? Mayor Adams?
I'm not going to violate federal law, so I don't have to worry about that.
Mayor Johnston?
We don't violate federal law either.
You don't violate federal law.
We do not violate federal law.
Is it violating federal law if you don't honor detainer requests from ICE?
Absolutely not. In fact, the statute Congressman Biggs shared, we explicitly follow. The statute says you cannot prohibit city employees from sharing information about someone's status with the government. We do not prohibit that.
Do you love illegal aliens more than you love your fellow countrymen?
I love all the residents of the city and county.
Mayor Johnston, are you willing to go to jail for violating federal law?
The city of Chicago complies with all laws.
Oh, I highly doubt that. Mayor Wu?
We are not violating federal law.
Mayor Wu, I have a last couple questions for you. Do you believe that ICE arresting a child rapist, quote, threatens everyone's safety, end quote? Yes or no?
No.
Does ICE arresting a murderous MS-13 gang member threaten everyone's safety? Yes or no?
No.
I would like to hold up this quote of you where you say, ICE's efforts actually threaten the safety of everyone, end quote, Boston Mayor Michelle Wu. You're a hypocrite. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back. Good morning to everyone who is here today, to our witnesses, to our guests who are here as well. Important conversation about leveraging technology to strengthen immigration enforcement. It was last year when I was in the Oversight Committee and I exposed a sanctuary sheriff in the state of South Carolina, Charleston County, South Carolina. Her name was Kristen Graziano. And I learned that she was not working with ICE at the time, and she was letting illegal immigrants who are here in our country illegally, criminals, because they break the law when they come into our country as soon as they cross that border illegally. It's a crime. But she was allowing rapists, pedophiles, molesters, murderers out onto the streets of South Carolina in my district, in my state, doing harm to women and girls. And so having this conversation today is more important than ever because we have to stop this. And I will say this, that illegal border crossings are down significantly now that Donald Trump is president. I believe the last stat I read was that they are down 90%. But anyway, when I was exposing what my sanctuary sheriff was doing last year, my lieutenant governor, Pam Yvette, stood silent. My attorney general, Alan Wilson, stood silent. I was literally one of the only people in South Carolina willing to stick my neck out, put my career on the line, my reputation on the line to make sure this kind of thing stopped. And so today we're going to have this hearing about using technology to minimize illegal immigration, to strengthen immigration enforcement. First of all, it's well documented the Biden administration used technology to facilitate the invasion of our nation by millions of illegal aliens, the CBP One app being just one example of this. Today's hearing will explore how technology can help strengthen the enforcement of our nation's immigration laws. Cutting-edge technology enhances immigration enforcement and reduces risks for immigration enforcement officials. From facial recognition software to data analytics, powered by artificial intelligence to GPS monitoring, advanced technologies empower U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, to track, apprehend, and deport illegal aliens in our country. And we know right now under the leadership of Donald Trump, under the leadership of Tom Homan, that we're trying to deport those who are here illegally as fast as we can. And I believe we don't have enough ICE agents right now to do that. We've got to make sure that ICE and Homeland Security have all the resources they need to do it as quickly as possible. Tracking illegal aliens and identifying threats to the homeland allows ICE to more effectively enforce our nation's immigration laws and remove those who are unlawfully present in the United States. Former President Biden and his Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, willfully and intentionally unleashed an invasion of illegal aliens into the U.S. from around the world. We had more people crossing illegally into our country that were on the terrorist watch list than ever in the history of the United States over the last 4 years. Illegal aliens shepherded into the country by the Biden administration include terrorists, murderers, rapists, pedophiles, cartel members, drug traffickers, sex traffickers, child traffickers, human traffickers. Not exactly the kind of people you want roaming the streets of our communities. By systematically dismantling President Trump's policies from his first administration, the Biden administration flung the border wide open for any and all who wish to enter here, the U.S., illegally. This has led to the unlawful entry of over 10 million illegal aliens into the U.S. and nearly 2 million, quote, known gotaways, end quote, who entered the country without once being apprehended. As of last July, there were over 646,000 illegal aliens with additional criminal histories running around free right here in the United States. And those are only criminal aliens that are known to ICE officials. So the actual number is actually statistically probably significantly much, much higher. Why is this issue important? Why must we use all means at our disposal to identify, locate, and deport all illegal aliens in the U.S.? It's because the heinous nature of the crimes committed by those who enter the U.S. illegally and treat this nation as their own playground to get rich by selling human beings and illegal drugs while victimizing women and children. The most dangerous criminals include cartel organizations that control the border, who force women into indentured servitude or sex slavery to pay for their entry into the U.S. They subject children to child pornography. If you speak to law enforcement at the border, you'll hear about rape trees, where the underwear of women and girls brutally raped on their journey to America are hung like trophies. 10 years ago, I didn't even know what fentanyl was. And now I personally know multiple people who've died of a fentanyl overdose. We've all heard stories also of law enforcement who are doing investigations who are accidentally exposed to fentanyl, end up in the hospital, very sick. They're lucky they haven't died. The Biden administration shoulders the blame for the record deaths of the American citizens, the record number of illegal aliens, and the record profits for drug cartels due to fentanyl and human trafficking. And we're talking about numbers, about the amount of money that the cartels have made off of drug trafficking and human trafficking, tens of billions of dollars, easily north of 60 or 70 billion dollars. They're making money off the U.S. because we let them. To protect American citizens, we must undo the horrors caused by the Biden administration's immigration policies that rewarded criminal illegal aliens. A core component of this is the ability to track and monitor all illegal aliens in the country when detention isn't feasible for some reason. When used as part of the Alternatives to Detention, or ATD program, modern technology can be used to monitor illegal aliens within the country and assist with proper enforcement of U.S. immigration laws. When detention is not possible, these modern technologies can enhance security by monitoring and tracking illegal aliens to ensure they can be removed once a final order of removal is in place. The Biden administration, however, refused to use the ATD program as intended, frequently and prematurely removing illegal aliens from monitoring before a final order of removal was, and allowing them to scatter throughout the interior of our country and victimize American citizens. For example, at the Biden administration's direction, one of the illegal aliens who murdered Jocelyn Nungare, a 12-year-old girl from Texas, who was raped and strangled to death. This is Jocelyn Nungare. I hope we never forget her name. We never forget her face. We never forget the horrors she endured as she was 12 years old. So the illegal who raped and killed her had his GPS ankle monitor removed prior to committing these horrific crimes. Jocelyn Nungare is the face of the horrors American women and girls are suffering at the hands of illegals that have been let in by the Joe Biden administration. The Biden administration allowed this to happen, all while unconscionably ignoring easy-to-use and available technologies that could have prevented the release of illegal aliens with criminal histories in the first place. I look forward to the testimonies of our witnesses today, which include former ICE officials, to hear about their firsthand experience and suggestions on how we can leverage technology to strengthen immigration enforcement and facilitate the mass deportations Americans overwhelmingly support. I will now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questions. A couple of weeks ago, I went on my first ICE raid, and I got to see ICE and Homeland Security and other agencies and agents come together, different field offices come together to find this guy who, a week prior, had like a brick of fentanyl or a portion of a brick, enough to kill 1,000 people. It was a lot. But one of the things that I learned there was that in the Biden administration, those agencies weren't actually able to work together. They weren't allowed to do that work together to deport those who are here illegally. And I learned a lot during that. But Dr. Gilmore, I want to ask you my first question. Something struck me in your testimony this morning. You're talking about restrictions on data. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Some examples, like I guess it was maybe biometric data. There are restrictions on data you can utilize or?
Yeah, so we have advanced technologies, facial recognition technology, pattern matching technology that could be used to solve a vast array of crime and can be used to identify victims of crime, especially minor victims of child sexual abuse material, human trafficking victims, that type of thing, who often live in the shadows, right? But that technology is so tightly controlled out of fear of privacy that it's only used in a very small percentage of cases. There's been a lot of fear that has been allowed to grow around that technology, I think often by people who don't really understand the technology and don't understand the fact that we can utilize that technology while also putting in proper safeguards to protect privacy, ethics, and civil rights.
And silos, some examples of silos that you mentioned.
Again, a lot of that technology is siloed into different components or divisions. It's not rolled out through an enterprise solution to the agency. Different components within DHS, our systems don't talk to each other. I mean, we have a hard enough time talking between HSI and ERO, between our systems, much less bringing in CBP, TSA, Border Patrol. And when that data is siloed within those particular components, it's very easy to miss things because you can't access the data and operationalize that data.
And then my next question is really for everyone. Can you speak to how the Biden administration used technology to facilitate the invasion of illegal aliens into the country?
Yes, ma'am. For one, CBP One app, I believe, was definitely misused by the Biden administration to allow people to come in. And that was one technology that was developed out of something that it shouldn't have been used for. I think it was a go-around around Congress to allow people to enter the United States. And we've seen a lot of those cases that have entered on the CBP One app show up as criminal aliens, in the arrests that we've made.
How's the app used?
How is it used?
Yeah, how's it used to do that?
Well, what we've seen, especially the fraud from that, is that the cartels were actually using it down in Mexico and having people sign up through them to then get on the CBP One app and get around, being able to go through. So the cartels were actually making money off of the CBP One app.
That's insane. Dr. Gilman.
Yeah, I echo everything that my counterpart just said. I don't have as much experience with the CBP One app, particularly because my focus was with HSI and primarily on criminal investigations. But even within HSI, we saw the misuse of the CBP One app by those subjects that we did encounter, oftentimes subjects of criminal investigations.
The cartels using CB One app to get people into this country illegally. And we know this. We know this, and we allowed it to happen. Mr. Hanklinson?
In terms of numbers, that nothing is more extreme than CBP One. There was also the programs for specific countries, which obviously had to use technology to enroll people in the first place. There was a lot of diversion or there was some diversion of ICE money to programs like the case management pilot program and the young adult case management program, I think it was, that were essentially providing social services instead of enforcement operations, and I'm sure that had to be facilitated by the use of the technology that they had.
I'm certain that they did. Thank you. I will now yield. Johnston, are you willing to go to jail for violating federal law?
The city of Chicago complies with all laws.
Oh, I highly doubt that. Mayor Wu?
We are not violating federal law.
Mayor Wu, I have a last couple questions for you. Do you believe that ICE arresting a child rapist, quote, threatens everyone's safety, end quote? Yes or no?
No.
Does ICE arresting a murderous MS-13 gang member threaten everyone's safety? Yes or no?
No.
I would like to hold up this quote of you where you say, ICE's efforts actually threaten the safety of everyone, end quote, Boston Mayor Michelle Wu. You're a hypocrite. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Recognized for 5 minutes for questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to keep it to 5 minutes. Ms. Doyle, you taught, you're an immigration attorney?
Yes.
Okay, and you teach
worked in
immigration law?
I have in the past, yes.
And you were a legal advisor to ICE?
I was, yes.
Question, do you support President Trump's policy to designate cartels as terrorist organizations?
I think that by designating...
It's a yes or no. Do you support President Trump's policy to designate cartels
I support
as...
focusing on national security and
Do you support President
dealing with our
Trump's
immigration.
policy to designate cartels as terrorist organizations?
I think it is important
yes or
to
no?
focus on national security.
Okay, should illegals who are here illegally, who rape American women and girls, should they be deported? Yes or no?
Individuals with serious criminal convictions such as that are deported every single day.
Oh, no, they're not. What about murderers? Do you think murderers should be deported?
Murders are also subject to deportation.
Okay, so there is a sanctuary sheriff named Kristen Graziano in Charleston County, South Carolina, who refused to work with ICE, and she was letting criminal illegals out on the street who were raping my constituents, raping women in Charleston, in South Carolina, pedophiles, child molesters, murderers out onto the streets of South Carolina. This is happening in Bright Red, South Carolina, the sanctuary sheriff. So they aren't being deported because there are sanctuary mayors. You want to quote Mayor Wu as being this gift from God about safety. I mean, she was literally like praising or sending her condolences to a knife-wielding maniac trying to murder people on the streets of Boston. It's crazy to me. And here you have a law degree. You have done advised on immigration to ICE, and you can't even say whether or not you want the cartels to be designated as terrorist organizations. You're hiding behind some little lofty quote about national security, which is not really making a whole lot of sense. One of the things I did want to fact check some of my colleagues on today is this idea, which has been said by multiple people online in this hearing today, that it's not illegal to come here illegally. Well, under Title 8, it actually is. Title 8 USC 1325 about the improper entry of an alien. It is breaking the law when you enter here illegally. And our witness, Ms. Doyle, cited in her opening presentation the 10th Amendment, that it gives absolute control to states and cities and counties to handle the immigration issue. It actually doesn't, and if I'm shocked as an attorney that you don't know the law, because it says under the law in multiple places, especially in long-standing Supreme Court precedent. But the 10th Amendment says the power is not delegated to the federal government or reserved for the states. Congress' power to regulate immigration primarily stems from Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4. And that is the power to establish a uniform rule of naturalization. And under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, power to regulate commerce with foreign nations. I'm not even an attorney, and I could easily look that up. I think we need to have higher standards for those who are lawyers and also practicing law and teaching law to our students, because there's a long-standing Supreme Court precedent also that's recognized Congress as having plenary power over immigration and not actually the states. And plenary means absolute control. So last year, I exposed a sanctuary sheriff who was doing day after day after day, months after months. I exposed her for releasing the worst of the worst, the most violent, those illegals that were committing the worst possible crimes. I fought to get rid of this sanctuary sheriff, Kristen Graziano, when I had documents sent to me by a whistleblower, and I ended up talking to multiple sources about this. I was one of the only elected officials that called out our sanctuary sheriff in South Carolina, Kristen Graziano. No one in statewide elected office, not my Attorney General Alan Wilson, not my Lieutenant Governor Pam Avett, if you're listening and you're watching, you stood by silent as a sanctuary sheriff let out murderers, let out rapists, let out child molesters and pedophiles out onto the streets of South Carolina. It was wrong, it was unethical, it was illegal. I had 145 Democrats vote against my bill, the Violence Against Women by Illegal Aliens Act. 145 Democrats voted against deporting those who are here illegally, the worst of the worst, murderers, rapists, pedophiles. Mr. Chairman, I yield back. I did it in record time today.
The gentlelady yields. Congresswoman Boebert is recognized for 5 minutes for questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Humir, so we've seen under the Biden administration the failed open border policies that really fueled and exasperated the immigration.
And conducts her family, so thank you. Agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. And I will now recognize myself for 5 minutes. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of our witnesses who are here today. I also believe I want to say that the American people deserve transparency, not just on JFK files, MLK, Epstein list, all the things. I also want to say I'm grateful to President Trump for keeping good on his promise for transparency. This is a man who literally also took a bullet for his country. And I agree with you, Mr. Stone, on your testimony and your opening statement. Giving our country, giving our democracy meaning and a purpose for a nation. And that, to me, personally means getting to the bottom of the truth, getting the truth out of whatever three-letter agency is hiding information, whether it's from Congress, whether it's from the American people. But sunshine literally is the best medicine. And we've just seen over the last few years, regardless of your politics, but we saw 51 intelligence leaders sign a letter saying the Hunter Biden laptop was fake. Turns out that was a cover-up. We saw a presidential candidate and Donald Trump spied on by the political opposition. We saw Biden's health care, his health. The previous administration lied to the American people about the president's health. They called his falling down cheap fakes. We saw the origins of COVID covered up by a government. We saw documents after documents, hidden from the American people. Donald Trump was treated differently when they found documents at Mar-a-Lago versus the way Joe Biden was treated when they found documents in his garage. The government tried to cover it up, tried to cover from him. We were lied to about drones just in the last few months. And so when we talk about this, the deep state, not only was it around during JFK's assassination, but it's here today. It is right before our eyes. And they are doing this in real time with regards to the Epstein list, which the government still has not released today, and the American people deserve to know who rich and powerful is on that list and who the government is covering up for. So for decades, we've seen this happen, and I'll get to a few questions. Mr. Morley, I want to start with you first. You said, according to your testimony, in asking, what did the CIA know and when did they know it? What do you think that is? What is the answer to that question?
I just want to say, I want to preface my remarks by saying I'm a liberal Democrat, and I don't shy away from that. That's part of my reporting, and that's part of my reputation for straight shooting. What did the CIA know about Lee Harvey Oswald, and when did they know it? Mm-hmm. A whole lot. 198 pages worth of information were on the CIA's desk when President Kennedy left for Dallas. So that foundational fact should guide us in understanding what happened.
So who do you think fired the shot?
I don't know.
You don't know, but you don't believe it was Lee Harvey Oswald?
Oswald was not the intellectual author of Kennedy's death, even if he fired a gun that day.
Who do you think was the intellectual author of Kennedy's death?
Kennedy's enemies high in his own government is as specific as I can be based on the available evidence. Mm-hmm. Probably CIA and Pentagon.
How long had the CIA been surveying Lee Harvey Oswald before the assassination attempt?
4 years.
4 years. And what are some of the highlights of the CIA's pre-assassination file on Lee Harvey Oswald?
They started reading his mail on November 9th, 1959, and they intercepted a number of letters between him and his mother. Those letters were forwarded to James Angleton in the summer of 1962. In the summer of 1963, Oswald attempted to infiltrate the CIA's favorite Cubans in New Orleans. He was arrested. The FBI sent reports on Oswald's arrest to Angleton's staff. They knew that he had attempted to infiltrate a CIA-funded group, that he had been arrested. And then they learned that he had attempted to travel to Cuba, a violation of U.S. law at the time, and he had made contact with a KGB officer in Mexico City.
Okay, Mr. Morley, did the CIA or FBI have intelligence prior to the assassination of President Kennedy Lee Harvey Oswald intended to kill him?
No.
Did the FBI did not either?
No.
No one did. And then how do we, Mr. Davison, how do we make sure the government is more transparent with Congress? You have 20 seconds. Good luck.
I think in general, the most important thing is to provide the resources to agencies to process public records requests or requests from Congress so that this information can actually be reviewed and disclosed in a timely fashion, whether you are concerned about the truth of the statements that you raised at the top of your presentation, or if perhaps you want to understand more about the Trump administration's hateful campaign against trans individuals. Either way, you would require more resources for public records disclosure and requests.
Okay, and just for clarification, Mr. Morley, this is about as nonpartisan as this committee gets. So, good job. Thank you. I'll now recognize Congressman Christian Morphy for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Ms. Mace from South Carolina.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the invitation to participate in today's hearing. Ms. Goss-Graves, so-called, quote, expert in women's rights, do you know how many years it took South Carolina to elect its first Republican woman to Congress?
Well, what year did
100 years since women got the right to vote. Do you know how many years it took the Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina, to graduate its first woman?
Well,
157 years. So I have a series of yes or no questions I would like to ask you based on some of your previous statements. In your opening statement today, you said trans women are women. Ms. Goss-Graves, what is a woman?
So a woman is an adult female. A woman identifies as a woman, and I actually think it is.
What do you consider a female? What is a female?
So there are some women who were assigned a female.
You say you're here to defend women. You say you're here to defend women, but shouldn't you be able to define one? Shouldn't you be able to define one if you're for women's rights?
That's literally what I'm.
Ms. Goss-Graves, do women have penises?
So again, I believe that women.
Democrats have gone so crazy. Women can have penises. That's not a thing. That's not biology. It's not science. And you sound like a lunatic.
And the women.
Should young girls just get used to penises in their locker rooms and showers? My next question, yes or no? Should little girls get used to penises in their locker rooms and showers? Yes or no?
I don't know what you're talking about, but what I will say.
Oh, I absolutely do. We've heard testimony today about trans women. Those are women with penises. Those aren't real women. I'm going to reclaim my time. When President Trump issued an executive order to keep men out of women's sports, thank God he did. You said it was sexist, bullying that harms all students.
Correct.
Is it sexist, yes or no, to protect women from men in sports? Yes or no?
If
can't
you
answer the
want
question.
to
Is it
protect
sexist to acknowledge basic science? Men and women are built differently. Is it sexist to acknowledge science? Can't answer the question. Does forcing little girls to strip down in front of men in locker rooms harm girls? Does forcing little girls to strip down in front of men in the locker room harm little girls? Yes or no? Can't answer the question. Does forcing little girls to shower, I'm going to reclaim my time. You can quit talking. These are yes or no questions. You can answer them or not. And you've chosen not to answer the questions today because you don't know how. It's shameful.
I know how to answer.
Do you support drugging and chopping off kids' genitals in the name of inclusion? Is that a thing for you?
I have to say.
You get off on that?
So stunned.
All right. When a biological man crushes a girl in a contact sport and sends her to the ER, is that your idea of empowerment? Is that empowering women when a young man beats a girl and takes her, sends her to the ER in a contact sport? Is that empowering women? Is that what that is?
Are you talking about Miss McNabb?
I'm talking about any woman who gets crushed in a sport by a man physically and has to go to the ER.
Miss McNabb and others.
I'm going to reclaim my time.
Concussion protocol.
Madam Chair, we'll show that the witness. I'm going to reclaim my time. You can stop talking now. I'm reclaiming.
This is Ms. Mace's time, Ms. Goss-Graves.
I would like some of that time back, Madam Chair. If a man can be a woman, just identify as a woman, as you say, just by saying so, what is the point of having women's sports? What is the point of women's spaces? What is the point of women's scholarships if you're just going to allow men to take them away? Why even bother? Why bother? The loudest voices, I'm not asking you a question, I'm speaking. The loudest voices on the left claiming to fight for women's rights are the very first people to take them away, steal them, and tear these women down. You're the first to erase them. Mr. Leifeld, Ms. Gosgraves, you all are shameful. I didn't come here to play with an ideology hell-bent on erasing women and grooming children. That's what you all are. You're groomers. And we're not going to. The chairwoman and I, Madam Chair, I'm going to reclaim my...
This is Ms. Mace's time. Ms. Gosgraves, Ms. Gosgraves.
This is a shocking thing to say about
Ms. Gosgraves, you are not recognized.
Okay, but I just want to say that is a shocking...
You are not recognized, Ms. Gosgraves. The time belongs to Ms. Mace.
Okay, fine.
Like Chairwoman Graham, I've been holding the line for women, standing between perverts and the rights of women and girls. And we're not going to let anyone in this country forget what a woman is. Mr. Leifeld, will you face Ms. Stephanie Turner today? Will you look her in the eyes? Will you apologize to her for the way that she was treated by USA Fencing, standing up for women and girls, women's rights, standing her ground as a woman who only wanted to fence with other women? Will you apologize to her today?
Congresswoman Mace, Ms. Turner was given a black card under our rules.
Will
which
you
align with those of
apologize for the way
International
she was treated?
Federation.
So that's a no.
So,
won't do it.
Congresswoman, if I could respond to one thing.
You know what's unbecoming of a leader? You said this just in your testimony just like 5 minutes ago.
Yes, ma'am.
That you've said several things that are just disgusting and unbecoming of a leader, to use your words. It's unbecoming of a leader today to acknowledge what has happened to this young woman. You just look at her face and look what she has been through, the courage it took her to stand up for her rights as a woman and other women in other sports all across the country. And you can't even as a man look her in the eye and apologize for what happened to her. And as not one. And I yield back.
The gentlelady yields. In closing, I want to thank our witnesses once again.
Representative Mace.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would thank the ranking member and Secretary Collins. Welcome. I look forward to working with you as we refocus the VA on what it's always meant to do, serve veterans and not push social experiments. For the past 4 years, veterans took a backseat to identity politics, gender ideology, DEI dogma. Every dollar wasted on the woke agenda was a dollar stolen from real care for real heroes. President Trump has given you a clear mandate in the circus, restore the mission. So let's talk biological reality, something the last administration ignored. President Trump has made it clear there are two sexes, male and female. They're assigned at birth. They can't be changed, and taxpayers should not foot the bill for surgical or chemical mutilation. How's the VA implementing President Trump's directives to restore biological reality and end taxpayer-funded sex changes?
By doing exactly what the EO's called for. We're no longer doing that. We've stopped care. If they were currently in hormonal treatment, or they're coming off of it from DOD, they're going to continue that because there is some health issues associated with that, so that's not being taken care of. But we're not starting, and we're also not getting into sex change operations. Those are just not something that the VA is going to be doing.
Yeah, what these people do to themselves, or doctors, is it's crazy, and it harms them physically and mentally. What steps has the VA taken to redirect money previously spent on gender ideology back toward actual veteran care?
I think what we're redirecting money back is to our paralyzed veterans, amputees, moving the monies to where it can be best spent. And again, I think that's the overall function of everything that we do is making sure that our healthcare system is just my priorities, is making sure our veterans have the benefits that they've earned.
DEI is out, equal opportunity is in. Equity politics and racial discrimination disguised as virtue and virtue signaling have no place at the VA. How many DEI-related contracts has the VA canceled, and what was the price tag on those savings?
There were a number of contracts, and the total value that we saw on those contracts was about $6.1 million.
And how has that freed up resources to be reallocated to improve veteran care?
As we said, it went back toward allocation toward community care and prosthetics as we were looking for that.
As an animal lover, I applaud the VA for ending painful, unnecessary experiments on dogs and cats. This was a bold step under President Trump, and Congress has since required the VA to phase out primate testing by 2026. What's the current status on phasing out animal testing, particularly on primates?
We're on track to make sure that directive is met. In fact, in some instances, we may be even able to meet that goal sooner.
Is the VA exploring any innovative non-animal research methods to replace outdated and inhumane testing on animals?
Yes, we're always looking for ways to to make the research as valuable to those that need it. And also again, we're in an area in which prosthetics and that kind of information with amputees is something very central to the VA. So it is something we're looking at.
And then what can other agencies learn from the VA's leadership in ending these cruel and obsolete animal experiments, do you think?
Well, I think, judging from the reaction to Congress, also what the president has also stated and laid out, I think is just following the rules as we go forward here.
Thanks to your leadership and President Trump's direction, the VA is finally being restored to its rightful purpose, delivering world-class care to those who serve their country. I look forward to continuing this mission with you. We wish you a lot of luck and many blessings to get the job done, and we believe in you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Chairman, welcome to the unofficial 2028 Democrat presidential primary right here on stage at the Oversight Committee. Governor Newsom must be seething. The three of you beat him to the stage, but he's a little busy right now defending illegals and defending Antifa, torching what is left of Los Angeles. Governor Walz knows the playbook. In 2020, he rolled out the red carpet for anarchists while Minnesotans watched their neighborhoods burn. You've turned your states into sanctuaries for illegals. You've done more to shield MS-13 than to protect the single mom working 2 jobs in Chicago, Queens, or Minneapolis. And you've worked harder against ICE than with them. So Governor Walz, and boy, does that feel nice to say the word governor, my first question is for you. Did you know the Nazis killed 6 million Jews during the Holocaust? It's a yes or no question. Did you know the Nazis killed 6 million Jews during the Holocaust?
Pushing my button to answer.
Okay.
Yes, I believe that's historic.
Okay, would you agree the Holocaust is the most horrific atrocity in human history? Yes or no?
I think the Holocaust ranks amongst them, yes.
Did you know the Nazi Gestapo imprisoned, tortured, and murdered Jews by the hundreds of thousands and committed genocide against the Jews? Did you know that?
I do know they operated as secret.
Did you know ICE has done none of that? Yes or no?
Operated as a secret police force?
No, that's not the question. Did you know that ICE has not committed genocide against anyone?
Yes, I do know that.
Okay. Do you apologize for your disgusting comparison of ICE to the Gestapo, who killed hundreds of thousands of Jews during the Holocaust?
As a history teacher?
Yes or no is the question.
A historical comparison.
You're a governor. You understand what the question is. It's yes or no. Will you apologize for what you said about ICE, comparing them to
ICE to
Gestapo?
identify who they are when they operate, to not use unmarked.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, this governor, or honorable, can't answer the question. Do you believe the Nuremberg trials were a good exercise in holding the Nazis accountable? Yes or no?
I think due process.
Okay, so are you calling for ICE agents to be brought to a tribunal under the threat of death by comparing them to the Gestapo?
Everyone is afforded due process.
What don't you understand about yes or no? Like, what can't you comprehend about yes or no questions?
I
Do you
understand
still want
being
to
a governor
abolish
is a
ICE?
different
Do you
job.
still want to abolish ICE? Yes or no?
Said I wanted to abolish ICE.
Didn't you march in a rally calling for ICE's abolishment?
Not that I can recall, Congressman.
Well, according to widespread media reports, you did.
And the media is always correct.
How do you rate Kamala Harris's job as border czar? I want a number between 1 and 10. How was she as border czar?
I wouldn't have a way to measure that. I was not in the administration.
Weren't you her running mate for vice president?
As in the campaign.
And you
Wasn't part of
can't
the
rate her role as border czar on a scale of 1 to 10. Was she great at 10 or was she a 1? Terrible.
I think her proposal that she put forward to make sure we had the bipartisan immigration.
It wasn't bipartisan. Did you ever personally speak with Kamala about Joe Biden's cognitive collapse?
Not that I can recall, Congressman.
Not as her running mate for vice president. You never once talked to her about the president and why she was nominated instead of him.
No, not that I can recall.
What kind of operation were you guys running over there?
I was more concerned with Donald Trump's cognitive.
Thank God he's
he's
president and J.D. Vance is vice president and not you. Have you ever served in a combat zone, Governor?
I have not, Congresswoman.
Okay. Are you still friends with school shooters?
I have never been a friend with a school shooter.
Didn't you say you were friends with school shooters on the debate stage?
Oh, Congresswoman.
Yeah.
I
Is
think that's very
bullying
evident.
is
As a teacher and a
bullying
parent.
is my mom was a teacher. I'm a high school dropout. We can talk about that later. Is bullying okay?
Is bullying okay as a teacher?
Is bullying okay? Yes or no? Is it okay to bully somebody?
I think
Yes
there's
or
a
no?
time to push back at a bully. So yes, I do think there's a time.
So you think it's okay to bully others?
I think it's okay to bully the bully at times.
Well, you're showing that the Democrat Party is a party of violence. Were you at Tiananmen Square?
Have I been to Tiananmen Square? I have.
Were you at Tiananmen Square?
I have been at Tiananmen Square.
When were you there?
Oh, as I recall, January of 1990.
Okay. What is a woman? What is a woman is the question.
I'm not sure I understand the question here.
Well, that.
What
Okay.
what do you want me to say? This is
I want you to say that a woman like me is an adult human female, that men can't become women. You guys are the party of violence, and you're the party erasing women. You don't respect us. You're a bigot. You're a misogynist. You're a sexist. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Congresswoman.
Good lady,
thank-
Mr.
back.
Chairman, I would
Recognizes
ask
Mr.
unanimous
Ocasio-Cortez.
consent.
This will be the last member before we have our break. Gentlelady from South Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to clarify, I want everyone to know that men are not women. And I find it deeply offensive as a woman who's broken glass ceilings. So to all the women out there who are fighting their way through their track meets, their scholarships, their jobs against mentally ill men, I want you to know, Republicans, we see you and we support you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to Secretary Hegseth and General Kane for joining us today. The Department of Defense and our armed forces exist to protect our country's interests and our citizens' freedoms. Under the previous administration, this mission was supplanted by divisive ideology and social experimentation. Allowing ideological advocacy to come before military readiness was an enormous mistake. At the direction of President Trump and under your leadership, the DoD is rightfully returning to its focus on lethality and readiness. Our country faces a complex array of challenges and must maintain unparalleled readiness. The changes you are implementing at DoD are critical to returning our military to its core mission. So I have a few questions for you, Secretary Hegseth, today. How much did the Biden administration spend on DEI programs at DoD?
Well, when you look at directly or ancillary reflections of it, it was billions of dollars, ma'am.
And did it focus on equitable outcomes rather than merit or improve our effectiveness in the military?
No, I think if you look at ongoing operations under the Biden administration and also recruiting and retention under the administration, it was a distraction, not an enabler.
Do DEI programs make our military more lethal?
No.
Secretary Hegseth, how much money did the Biden administration spend on the chemical and surgical mutilation of our service members under the guise of gender-affirming care?
I don't know, but $1 is too much.
I agree. Did sex change experiments in the chemical and surgical mutilation or castration of service members improve our defense capabilities and make us more lethal?
No.
That's what I thought. Secretary Hegseth, can a history of mental health conditions disqualify someone from military service?
Yes.
And is gender dysphoria, a documented mental illness, included in this list of disqualifying conditions?
It was not, but it is now, per an executive order from the White House and reinforced by the Defense Department. Gender dysphoria is properly recognized as a mental disorder and a disqualifying one for military service.
God bless America. Okay, so I welcome the announcement of the Navy that they would be ending animal testing on cats and dogs. Huge win for animal lovers and those against the barbaric treatment of cats and dogs. However, I understand there are still some active Biden-era dog and cat tests being funded by the DoD. Secretary, do you plan to end these experiments as well?
As you know, Congresswoman, we've looked at a lot of those. We've reviewed a lot of those, and we've ended a lot of those. There are probably others under review, and we will do that.
I would love for you all to do a review and eliminate all of them, to see them ended as well. Do you think you'll enact a DoD-wide ban on conducting or funding cat and dog experiments? Do you think that'll be in the future under your leadership?
We will review that. Right now, our focus is studies that actually add to our capability, our readiness, our warfighting ethos. So if they don't contribute to enabling better capabilities, then they will be reviewed and ended.
Okay, and talk to me about recruitment. How far, you've already hit your recruitment numbers this year so far, right? Or close to it?
In record numbers, yeah, months and months ahead in all services.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think a new commander-in-chief was elected in November and inaugurated in January, and I used to call it the Trump bump. I think you can't call it that anymore. It's a tsunami of young Americans who believe in the direction President Trump is taking the country, and specifically his leadership as commander-in-chief, and they look at a fighting force that's going to be back to basics. We get accused of wanting to do ideology. It was ideology on the other side that was pushed into the military.
Yeah.
We're pulling that out and getting back to basics, fidelity to the Constitution, focus on war fighting. Americans respond when that's the focus, and that's what we've seen.
So if there's a young person watching today on C-SPAN, and I hope that there are a few, and if they're looking at, they don't know what they want to do with the rest of their life, how do they get recruited into the military? What can they go do today, right now, to come work for you?
Well, the menu is large of any different services, any different jobs, and contrary to the narrative being pushed by one side, we have record number of females, minorities as well. This is not just one group of people joining the military, and we welcome all Americans who are qualified to serve our country.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Gentlelady.
And welcome to the unofficial 2028 Democrat presidential primary right here on stage at the Oversight Committee. Governor Newsom must be seething. The three of you beat him to the stage, but he's a little busy right now defending illegals and defending Antifa, torching what is left of Los Angeles. Governor Walz knows the playbook. In 2020, he rolled out the red carpet for anarchists while Minnesotans watched their neighborhoods burn. You've turned your states into sanctuaries for illegals. You've done more to shield MS-13 than to protect the single mom working 2 jobs in Chicago, Queens, or Minneapolis. And you've worked harder against ICE than with them. So Governor Walz, and boy, does that feel nice to say the word governor, my first question is for you. Did you know the Nazis killed 6 million Jews during the Holocaust? It's a yes or no question. Did you know the Nazis killed 6 million Jews during the Holocaust?
Pushing my button to
Okay.
answer. Yes, I believe that's historic.
Okay, would you agree the Holocaust is the most horrific atrocity in human history? Yes or no?
I think the Holocaust ranks amongst them, yes.
Did you know the Nazi Gestapo imprisoned, tortured, and murdered Jews by the hundreds of thousands and committed genocide against the Jews? Did you know that?
I do know they operated as secret.
Did you know ICE has done none of that? Yes or no?
Operated as a secret police force?
No, that's not the question. Did you know that ICE has not committed genocide against anyone?
Yes, I do know that.
Okay. Do you apologize for your disgusting comparison of ICE to the Gestapo, who killed hundreds of thousands of Jews during the Holocaust?
As a history teacher.
Yes or no is the question.
A historical
You're a
comparison.
governor. You understand what the question is. It's yes or no. Will you apologize for what you said about ICE, comparing them to
I would ask ICE to
Gestapo?
identify who they are when they operate, to not use unmarked.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this governor, or honorable, can't answer the question. Do you believe the Nuremberg trials were a good exercise in holding the Nazis accountable? Yes or no?
I think due process.
Okay,
is
so
always
are you calling for ICE agents to be brought to a tribunal under the threat of death by comparing them to the Gestapo?
Everyone is afforded due process.
What don't you understand about yes or no? Like, what can't you comprehend about yes or no questions?
I
Do you
understand
still want
being
to
a governor
abolish
is a
ICE?
different
Do you
job.
still want to abolish ICE? Yes or no?
Said I wanted to abolish ICE.
Didn't you march in a rally calling for ICE's abolishment?
Not that I can recall, Congressman.
Well, according to widespread media reports, you did.
And the media is always correct.
How do you rate Kamala Harris's job as border czar? I want a number between 1 and 10. How was she as border czar?
I wouldn't have a way to measure that. I was not in the administration.
Weren't you her running mate for vice president?
As in the campaign.
And you
Wasn't
can't
part of the
rate her role as border czar on a scale of 1 to 10. Was she great at 10 or was she a 1? Terrible.
I think her proposal that she put forward to make sure we had the bipartisan immigration.
It wasn't bipartisan. Did you ever personally speak with Kamala about Joe Biden's cognitive collapse?
Not that I can recall, Congressman.
Not as her running mate for vice president. You never once talked to her about the president and why she was nominated instead of him.
No, not that I can recall.
What kind of operation were you guys running over there?
I was more concerned with Donald Trump's cognitive.
Thank God he's
he's
president and J.D. Vance is vice president and not you. Have you ever served in a combat zone, Governor?
I have not, Congresswoman.
Okay. Are you still friends with school shooters?
I have never been a friend with a school shooter.
Didn't you say you were friends with school shooters on the debate stage?
Oh, Congresswoman.
Yeah,
I
is
think that's very
bullying,
evident.
is
As a teacher and a
bullying,
parent.
is, my mom was a teacher, I'm a high school dropout, we can talk about that later. Is bullying okay?
Is bullying okay as a teacher?
Is bullying okay, yes or no? Is it okay to bully somebody?
I think
yes
there's
or
a
no?
time to push back at a bully. So yes, I do think there's a time.
So you think it's okay to bully others?
I think it's okay to bully the bully at times.
Well, you're showing that the Democrat Party is a party of violence. Were you at Tiananmen Square?
Have I been to Tiananmen Square? I have.
Were you at Tiananmen Square?
I have been at Tiananmen Square.
When were you there?
Oh, as I recall, January of 1990.
Okay. What is a woman? What is a woman is the question.
I'm not sure I understand the question here.
Well, that.
What do you want me to say? This is.
I want you to say that a woman like me is an adult human female, that men can't become women. You guys are the party of violence, and you're the party erasing women. You don't respect us. You're a bigot. You're a misogynist. You're a sexist. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
We will now consider log number 4820 by Ms. Mace. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from South Carolina seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Will the clerk please distribute the amendment without objection? The reading of the amendment dispensed with. The chair recognizes the gentlelady for the purpose of explaining her amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment is simple and frankly long overdue. It mandates promotions and personnel decisions are based on one thing and one thing only: merit. Not skin color, not gender, not woke ideology, just merit, performance, and capability as it should be in the world's greatest fighting force. This amendment is uncontroversial, at least it should be. The American people expect and our national security demands the capabilities of our armed forces. This amendment puts an end to the poison seeping into the Department of Defense, identity-based favoritism, race-based promotions, and equity mandates which put politics ahead of performance. Our service members must rise through the ranks on the basis of their skills and their performance, not what they look like. Under the Biden administration, we saw an increasing focus on equitable outcomes and personnel policy. We've seen promotions and leadership training slots doled out based on who earned them, not on who earned them, but on who checked the right demographic boxes. These policies were discrimination in disguise. It's social engineering on the taxpayer dime and made our military weaker. In the military, the stakes are literally life and death. When you're flying an aircraft, operating a naval vessel, or leading a platoon, merit matters. Skills matter. In combat, no one cares about what you look like or what your pronouns are. All that matters is if you can get the job done. President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have ushered the department back to a culture of excellence, not entitlement. Under their leadership, the Department of Defense is reorienting itself back to its core mission. But let's be honest, under another administration, all this nonsense can come roaring back. If we don't lock meritocracy into law, we're one election away from going back to racial quotas and gender-bending nonsense. This amendment is a recommitment to a principle which should be used and should not be taken for granted. The most competent person gets the job. Let's stop playing politics with personnel policy. Let's stop telling our troops you have to look a certain way to get ahead. Let's stop pretending DEI is anything other than a dangerous distraction. Let's restore merit, restore sanity, and get our military back to doing what it does best, winning on the battlefield. And I urge my colleagues to support this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Does any member seek recognition? Gentlelady from Washington, Ms. Strickland.
Thank you, Chairman. Some of my colleagues seem to believe that merit and diversity are mutually exclusive. And the reality is that the diversity of the U.S. Armed Forces is one of its greatest strengths. And then there's criticism about previous administrations. This is my 5th year in Congress and my 5th year on this committee. And on both sides of the aisle, I consistently hear people say that the U.S. military is the most lethal fighting force in the world. Period. Before this president took the White House and before many others have. So what's changed? This attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion is really an attempt to suppress, erase, and make some people invisible while elevating others. And remember, it was not that long ago when we desegregated the military. My own father served in a segregated army. And of course, what's ironic here is that we're talking about being anti-DEI when the Secretary of Defense is the poster child for DEI. If things are based on merit and qualification, why in God's name is Pete Hegseth the Secretary of Defense? Is it merit that black men in the Air Force's junior enlisted ranks are 86% more likely than their white counterparts to face non-judicial punishment in court-martial? Is it merit that black and Latino service members remain vastly underrepresented in the officer corps compared to their numbers in the force as a whole? But again, this is part of a strategic effort by this administration to roll back civil and human rights in this country. My colleagues want to hand-wave away discrimination in the military and in society as if 80 years of effort makes up for hundreds of years of lawful discrimination. When you look at the enlisted ranks in the US military, over 40% are represented by people of color and minorities. And I know that some of my colleagues think that supporting service members from underrepresented groups somehow takes away from what they view as merit, but it's completely misguided. Our diversity is what makes us strong. Our diversity is what gives us the ability to fight and to do things around the world. There is a reason that when the Supreme Court ruled against DEI for college admissions, they exempted the US military academies because they knew that DEI was essential for them to do well. Efforts to take us backwards are not just misguided, they're harmful to our readiness. Let's include people. Let's include anyone who is qualified and willing to serve. It's a foundation of who we are as a country. It's the most patriotic thing we can do. And I urge my colleagues to vote against this amendment. I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Gentlelady yields back. The chairman would like to state that he supports this amendment. Does anybody else seek recognition on the gentlelady's amendment? If there's no further debate, the question occurs on the amendment offered by Ms. Mace. So many in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. A recorded vote's requested. Recorded vote will be postponed to a later time. We will now consider log number 4964 by Ms. Mace of South Carolina. For what purposes, gentlelady from South Carolina, seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Will the clerk please distribute the amendment without objection? The reading of the amendment is dispensed with. The chair recognizes the gentlelady for the purpose of explaining her amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we go from one amendment that is America last to one that is America first. Today, I offer an amendment to remove funding for the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative because the American people are done footing the bill for endless foreign wars. The American people spoke loudly last November. They want peace. They want an end to foreign entanglements, and for their representatives to actually put their interests above those of foreign nations. To date, we spend over $170 billion in aid to Ukraine, and what do we have to show for it? A black hole where accountability should be, and a war with no end in sight. All to prop up President Zelensky, who cancels elections in his country while interfering in the presidential election in ours. After his failed attempt to campaign for Kamala Harris, President Zelensky showed up to the Oval Office, and instead of showing gratitude to the American people, he acted like an insolent child toward President Trump. It's time we stop asking the American people to carry the burden of this war. It's simply not in our interest to do so. For decades, this body has operated under the delusion that we can police the entire world, topple unfriendly regimes without consequences, and turn every nation in the world into a liberal Western democracy. There's been an utter lack of thought for the one thing which matters most. How does American involvement make life better for the American citizens we represent? This amendment is not about choosing sides. It's about choosing responsibility to the American taxpayer and putting the American people first. Our national debt is over $37 trillion and counting, and our nation teeters on fiscal catastrophe. Every time Congress approves more aid, we put more debt on the backs of American taxpayers. We have real problems in this country. Walk outside this building and across our nation's capital, and you'll see it. Visit California, where the liberals are literally burning cities to the ground, Antifa and illegals. Just blocks away from where we sit, it's not funny watching cities burn under Gavin Newsom. We see American citizens being gunned down in broad daylight, homeless veterans sleeping on our streets, crumbling infrastructure, and open-air drug use. Every dollar sent to Ukraine is a dollar stolen from the American people. Congress has continuously signed off on war on behalf of a country most people can't find on a map. No one can coherently explain why it's in our national interest to do this. No one can tell us what victory looks like. No one can tell us what the end game is, and no one can explain our exit strategy or even if we have one. And no one can tell us how much additional American treasure we will have to spill in Ukraine. For years, while NATO pushed eastward despite Russia's repeated warnings, our NATO allies underinvested in their own defenses and counted on the American people to bail them out. Americans don't want another forever war. Americans don't want to keep paying for Zelensky's photo ops, and they sure as hell don't want their sons and daughters to die in the Donbass. I urge my colleagues to support this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Chair now recognizes the gentlelady from, Chair now recognizes the ranking member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I spoke why we should support Ukraine to some detail, but just a couple things. I mean, just voted to increase the debt by nearly $4 trillion. I mean, I just don't think you should be able to talk about the debt after you take a vote like that. Second of all, yes, I agree. The American people do not want the United States of America to send our troops to fight in wars. I think we've learned some really strong lessons about what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. But there are no American troops fighting in Ukraine. We want to prevent that from happening by keeping peace and stability in the world so that it doesn't tumble into that direction. So to use the wars where we did send American troops, and in many cases mistakenly, as an excuse for not stopping what Putin is doing in Eastern Europe completely misses the point. And we are not trying to create a liberal democracy. Ukraine was a free democracy before Putin invaded in an attempt to destroy it. In a relatively low-cost way, we are keeping peace and stability in a part of the world that could easily turn in the other direction. This is an excellent investment in that. And the end game, as I said in the first point, is to stop Putin so he's forced to the table. As has been outlined, there is no evidence that he's going to stop in the Donbass or at Kyiv or in Moldova or elsewhere. You know, Secretary Hegseth, before he was secretary, had a memorable way of putting it, saying, well, you know, in Ukraine, Putin just wants his stuff back. And what he meant by that, of course, was the Soviet Empire, that Putin has, you know, waxed nostalgic as the greatest tragedy of the 20th century, that it collapsed. Yeah, Mr. Secretary, you're right. He wants his stuff back. But there's a lot of stuff he wants. And if he's not stopped here, the conflict grows. And furthermore, if the message is sent that you can simply take territory if you have the military muscle to do it, that is a lesson that China will take, one way or the other. If this proves to be a disaster for Putin, a mistake that costs Russia more than it gains, China will learn that lesson. If we in the 53-nation coalition, it's not just us, it's 53 nations in this coalition. If we step back and let Putin take Ukraine and God knows what else, China will heed that message as well. That is why this is in our interests and why I urge opposition to this amendment.
Chair, now recognize the gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I echo the ranking member's comments here as well. Now, we learned in the 1930s that saying, hey, what's going on over in Europe or what's going on in Asia, it doesn't affect us. We learned it didn't work. Isolationism did not work in the 1930s. The GOP was last isolationist in the 1930s, and we realized it didn't work. And we've, ever since World War II, have been advocates for peace through strength and having a strong alliance system and standing up to the bully. And when we talk about endless wars, we don't have any troops there. It's Ukraine that's trying to defend themselves against a barbaric invasion, against bombings every night in their cities. They just need our military help so they can win this war. And I echo the comments too, it's going to cost us more if Russia prevails. I'm telling you, Moldova will be next, and I'll put them right on the border of NATO. The Baltics could very well be next. Georgia is already being invaded by Russia at a smaller scale, but still the invasion's going on. And Azerbaijan is under threat right now as we speak. And I think Americans voted for President Trump this last cycle because of the border and because of inflation. Yet, every poll I see, it's typically around 2-to-1 in favor of Ukraine. So the Americans did not vote for that. They voted for other reasons for President Trump. And I am grateful that President Trump is seeing through Putin right now and pivoting on this strategy with Ukraine and now committing weapons to go to Ukraine. And I hope a lot more as we go along. I yield.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes the gentlelady from New Jersey, Ms. Sherrill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I strongly oppose this amendment. It's short-sighted, it goes against America's most fundamental values, and would cripple our security interests in Europe. My colleague on the other side of the aisle is fond of saying she's putting America's interests first, but eliminating the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative is the complete opposite of putting America's interests first. There's no better investment in America's national security than our support for Ukraine. Russia is one of America's foremost adversaries in the world, and Vladimir Putin is hell-bent on destroying America's global leadership. Since he first became president, he has pushed a violent and ceaseless campaign to restore Russia to its Soviet-era strength. He has invaded Russia's neighbors, including Ukraine, multiple times, assassinated political enemies, and committed blatant acts of sabotage and terrorism in Europe and across the world. Vladimir Putin is America's enemy, and anyone who says differently is delusional. When Putin began his brutal invasion of Ukraine 3 years ago, he thought he would achieve victory in a matter of days. But he severely underestimated the courage, tenacity, and ingenuity of the Ukrainian people who have fought and died every day since that invasion to defend their country. So now hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers have been killed, thousands of tanks and vehicles have been destroyed, hundreds of aircraft and helicopters have been shot down, and some of Russia's most formidable warships have been sunk. Every Russian tank that Ukrainians destroy on the battlefield, every missile they shoot out of the sky, every nuclear bomber they blow up on an airfield is one less that we have to worry about. And it is one less that the U.S. would have to destroy if we ever ended up at war with Russia. Ukraine is fighting our adversary and destroying its military. Even Trump agrees and seems to be starting to understand the threat that Putin poses. In just the last few days, he's expressed support for sending significant military aid to Ukraine. How is pulling U.S. assistance from Ukraine and strengthening Russia putting America's interests first? Moreover, the majority of U.S. money for Ukraine is spent right here in the United States purchasing munitions and equipment from American companies. This spending supports thousands of good-paying jobs in places like New Jersey and South Carolina. Supporting Ukraine doesn't mean we are supporting some far-off war that doesn't impact us. Supporting Ukraine means helping them defeat our adversaries and supporting American workers. That's putting America's interests first, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Chair, and I recognize the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief on this, but I want this war to end. And if we want this war to end, there are two things that have to happen. One is we have to make sure that Ukrainians can defend themselves, and we have to make sure that Ukrainians can deliver offensive punches, not just defensive punches. Now, the mistakes that have been made in the past, Biden wouldn't allow the Ukrainians to play offense. We did not enforce the sanctions against countries that were buying oil from Russia that allowed Vladimir Putin to prop up his economy. And if we're honest, Europe, their banks continue to do business in Russia, and Europe, the European Union and Greece sold almost 100 ships to Russia for the Russians to carry out their fleet so that they could sell their oil. So there's a lot of people in the world that are responsible for this Ukrainian war continuing at this stage. Now, why does it matter? Well, it matters because of democracy, but I would respectfully submit it also matters because of the global food supply. Odessa's port is probably the largest port from the standpoint of gross tonnage of food deliveries to the world and the global food supply. And the reason Putin wants to control the Black Sea is because it gives him control over a significant portion of the food supply of the world, and that gives him control over a lot of economies, and he's got to be stopped. So I want the war to end. I think the best way for the war to end is for us to enforce the sanctions against Russia. and new sanctions too. But we got to give the Ukrainians the weapons they need to defend themselves until the sanctions are strong enough to cripple Russia's economy and Putin goes back into his own territory and takes care of Russians instead of picking on Ukrainians. With that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair, and I recognize the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Bendeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The gentlelady's amendment and comments in favor of this amendment are frankly nonsensical, short-sighted, and filled with misinformation, in fact, Russian misinformation, and FSB talking points. Supporting Ukraine is in U.S. national security interest, and it's not just the values side of this argument, that freedom and democracy, the things that this country fought a revolution to achieve, but it's also in our real tangible national security interests now, and standing against a autocratic axis that is obviously, very obviously forming with Iran, North Korea, China, and Russia. China is watching what we do in Ukraine. They're watching to see whether we abandon our allies in NATO, our partners in Ukraine that we've committed to supporting. We convinced Ukraine to give up its nuclear weapons in the 90s. They were the third biggest nuclear power in the world. We convinced them to give up those weapons. We made a commitment, whether you want to call it a soft commitment or otherwise. China is watching to see whether we back away from our commitments, and they will act accordingly in Taiwan. Further, the winds are obviously changing, and this amendment is contrary to the direction that this administration is heading in. The lady is on the wrong side. The gentlelady is on the wrong side. The war in Ukraine has provided untold benefits to the national security of this country, taking out some of the strategic bombers, taking out thousands of armored vehicles that were poised against us in Eastern Europe. And frankly, it's created space in places like Syria, where the Russians were too distracted in Ukraine to be able to reinforce Bashar al-Assad, and the same thing in Iran. The benefits are very obvious to me, and I think the gentlelady is wrong on this amendment, and I urge voting against it. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair, I recognize the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I strongly oppose Congresswoman Mace's short-sighted amendment to cut funding for the Ukraine Security Initiative. When Americans speak, people around the world listen. When America stands by its allies stand by us. When we abandon our allies, the rest of the world wonders if we will abandon them. Letting Vladimir Putin win isn't just bad for Ukraine, it's bad for us. Within the past few weeks, the city of Brovary experienced horrific shelling and a major drone attack at the hands of Russia. Brovary, Ukraine is the sister city of my hometown of Rockford, Illinois. Both cities have a place in my heart. The inconsistent messages from the White House are an embarrassment. The rest of the world is looking at us and either laughing or crying. While I'm glad our already congressionally appropriated military aid will be making its way to Ukraine, it should never be in question. I'm thankful that President Trump is finally beginning to understand who Putin really is. He's a man who says one thing and does something else. A dangerous autocrat who is hell-bent on doing anything he can to resurrect the Soviet Union. As Americans, we must remain unified. And the only thing the Congresswoman's amendment would do is make us weaker in the eyes of our adversaries. I urge my colleagues to be on the right side of this vote and on the right side of history. Vote no. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair, and I recognize the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support the amendment because I support the cessation of feeding this war. There's been zero intelligent definition of what victory would look like over there. You think Crimea is going back to Ukraine? You think they're getting back their eastern territories? You fed them. I've been on the ground over there. I have in my heart love for the Ukrainian people and their stance for their own sovereignty and their freedom. I know what that feels like. And you have fed them enough weaponry for their entire nation to be pounded into dust. And who's going to rebuild? If you could define victory, if anyone in this body could define victory out of some fantastic imagination that Ukraine is going to defeat Russia and get back what? Pre-2014 lines? It's insanity. And if that would happen, funded by the American people with borrowed money that we don't have, we're currently $37 trillion in debt. And the ranking member says that we voted to raise the debt. He knows that's not true. He knows that's not true. We raised the debt limit and decreased spending. And I think $37 trillion is not humorous. Good sir. If this body were to run a $1 billion surplus, it would require 37,000 years to address a $37 trillion debt, and that is not funny. So the American people are indeed watching very carefully. Should we continue to spend borrowed treasure on a war that this body is unable to define victory? I support the good lady's amendment, and I take offense to the way she's been referenced here. She certainly put her heart and her mind and her intentions into what she believes is best for the American people. And I understand where she's coming from. I support the President's diplomatic endeavor, including using the threat of enhanced military actions. But watch what he does. President Trump is 10, 20 steps ahead of everybody in the room. And he knows that the end to this war is the only way to define victory. I support the amendment. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Garamendi.
Well, sir, you certainly riled me up, but I'm going to let Mr. Smith have a go at you. I yield my time to Mr. Smith.
I'm not going to have a go at anybody, but thank you very much. And just 3 quick points. One, to the extent that anyone was disrespectful to Ms. Mace, I certainly didn't hear it. I mean, I appreciate this, and we have a difference of opinion, and we express that difference of opinion. I don't think anyone said anything disrespectful. Second of all, I'm sorry, but you didn't just vote to increase the debt. That's a hard one to swallow. I apologize for laughing, but every single person who's analyzed it, even your own side, agrees that you increased the debt. The disagreement is by how much. So that one really threw me. But third, I will tell you what the definition of victory is. It is what the Biden administration said from time to time and then really struggled to stick to the message. I will grant you that. A sovereign, democratic Ukraine that can defend itself and we don't wind up with a war against Russia. That is the definition of success. We are not insisting upon a particular set of borders. We are insisting that Putin stops his attempt to destroy Ukraine, that there is a sovereign, democratic Ukraine when this is done. It will not be perfect, to be sure, but to give up and let Putin destroy Ukraine, the goal is to stop that. Now, I'll grant you, not everyone has been as clear as they should have been on that, but that has been the approach from the very start. A sovereign, democratic Ukraine, the survival of Ukraine. That, I think, is achievable, and that's what we should help them achieve. I yield back. Thank you.
Oh, my, Mr. Smith, you left me with 1 minute, 10 seconds.
What's wrong with brevity?
Exactly right. You just heard a definition of success from Mr. Smith. I'll give you a definition of defeat. Ukraine is overrun by Russia. Ukraine becomes a satellite of Russia or is absorbed into Russia. And then the next step is what Putin has said repeatedly for the last 25 years, and that is the reestablishment of the old Soviet Union, including the Warsaw Pact. So all of the Eastern European countries are at risk. The definition of defeat is Russia taking over, dominating in one or another way Ukraine. Step one. Step two has been alluded to by our colleagues here. That's the definition of defeat. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair, and I recognize the gentlelady from Pennsylvania, Ms. Houlihan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I strongly oppose Representative Mace's amendment. It is absolutely insane to stop funding for Ukraine's security initiative at this point in time. I would encourage us, I would beg us to remember our history. Dare I say, or ask people to do the research and understand that it is 1939 again here in this world. This is my father's teddy bear. It is a sawdust teddy bear that he brought over from Poland when he survived the Holocaust and World War II with his mom. He was born in what is now Ukraine, what it was Poland at the time, in 1942, just days into and days away from Hitler's final solution. We know how this conflict will end because Putin has told us how it's going to end. We know where this is going because he has told us where this is going. To Georgia, to the Baltics, to Azerbaijan, and indeed to Lithuania, where Pennsylvania's partner nation in Lithuania's soldiers are sitting right now as we speak. And then it's going, possibly, to Xi, because he's watching too, because they are watching too. The investment that we Americans are putting into this is pennies on the dollar in terms of what we get in return. These brave Ukrainian men and women who have fought for years on our behalves and put their lives on the line for us, for the democracies around the world, deserve our continued support. And I'm grateful that President Trump has finally seemingly seen the reality and the importance of support of Ukraine. I agree that this amendment is misplaced. It is an artifact of time and history, and it should be dismissed without regard. We must support Ukraine. Past is absolutely prologue, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Chair, and I recognize the gentleman, Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I may have missed something, Mr. Chair, and I want to make sure this doesn't go unaddressed. But what exactly do the California ICE raids have anything to do with the Ukraine security initiative? We have got to stop scapegoating immigrants for every issue on the other side, because this has absolutely nothing to do with this subject matter. We should be treating this committee with the respect that it deserves and staying on top of it and talking about Ukraine and our national interest in the Baltic. And I respect the other side when they make coherent and logical arguments as to why we should be pulling out. Those are good discussions for us to have here. But I don't believe the Ukraine Security Initiative has anything to do with California ICE raids, unless I'm mistaken, unless there's some secret Ukraine cartel organization that's smuggling Central Americans into California. If that's the case, then I will retract my comments. But as far as I know, using immigrants to scapegoat an issue about the Ukraine Security Initiative, give me a break. This has nothing to do with immigrants. I urge my colleagues to strongly oppose this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Gentleman yields back. Chair, and I recognize the gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My colleague talked about how likely is it to for Ukraine to defeat Russia. And I would just say, let's just go back and look at history. There was this, I read about this small colony that took on the baddest, biggest superpower the world had ever seen and won its independence. And so I would remind this body to not forget who we are. We are the legacy of democracy. And democracy is hard. It's tough. When it takes root, we have to support it, as we said before. But let's not forget who we are. And our sworn enemy, we get an opportunity to take on our sworn enemy without using any of our troops. there's a disconnect here. I don't understand what the issue is here when we're talking about a democracy that is fighting for its sovereignty that aligns with our very same principles. And so I think we just need to remember who we are. I yield the remainder of my time to Mr. Vindman.
Thank you. So now that we're talking about history, a favorite topic of mine, let us also remember when this nation was born, we defeated the greatest power, land power, and sea power on the planet, but we did that also with the help of the French. And maybe we ought to remember that when we consider whether we want to support or revoke our support from the Russians. Let me recommend to my colleague also that on the other side of the aisle that the values that you recognize in the Ukrainians, seeking freedom, democracy, this is a new democracy, only 34 years old or so. Why not let those be your guidepost on what the right action here is? It's consistent with our national security. We already talked about that, but let's also be guided by our values. Let's talk a little bit of facts. Ukraine is not being pounded into dust. Ukrainian cities are taking heavy fire, undoubtedly, but there's no imminent threat of a collapse. Ukraine is now a major UAV power. We saw that in Operation Spiderweb. We see that in the pace of Russian advance on the front line. We may be the preferred partner, but we're not the only partner. The Europeans will step in. NATO will step in. I guarantee the Polish have no interest in having Russia on their doorstep. Finally, how do we get to peace? We need negotiations. We get to negotiations only by putting pressure on Russia. That is the direction that we have to move in. That is the direction the President is moving in. And that's why I'm against this amendment. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman's time's expired. Does any other member seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, I don't. Okay, Mr. Keating's recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The number 30 to 27 is going to be something we'll remember tomorrow morning or whenever we get through with this, because the votes will always be 30 to 27, with rare exceptions in this. So in one sense, I'm glad this amendment's placed in. I'm against it. The concept behind it is dead wrong. We're going to have an opportunity in this committee, and I hope I'm not wrong, where you're not going to see a 30 to 27 vote against this. You're going to see a bipartisan vote against this, because there's bipartisan consensus in Congress that we're concerned about honoring nuclear proliferation agreements that date back to the Budapest Agreement here, something that's important as we negotiate other agreements. We're at least sticking to our words so far, not as well as I'd like, but certainly not the way Russia has betrayed that. There's a bipartisan concern about China and the threat of China. And everyone in this committee knows our #1 policy is deterrence. And the #1 example of not being deterrent power is collapsing our coalition around our support of Ukraine. There's a bipartisan concern about funding, too, and the money. And I think particularly longstanding members of this committee will know that in the absence of Ukraine winning and Putin's just overt attacks and threats to the Baltics, we're going to deploy more troops in Eastern Europe if Ukraine loses, and that'll cost a multiple amount more than the small amount we're investing here. And there's also a bipartisan concern on how we're going to pay it on the Repo Act and using the Russian frozen assets, potentially, to rebuild and to help Ukraine the way that we should, make the person that's responsible. And in Europe, that's over $300 billion that's there, much smaller here. So I look at this vote coming up later on this amendment, and I hopefully will see a break from about every other vote that we're going to have. And that will be a great message to send to Putin. That'll be a great message to send to people in the country who don't really know or are confused by some of our support here, by looking at the #1 committee in Congress that's given the responsibility of making those decisions for the American people and seeing a bipartisan vote against this. So I look forward to that, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Does any other member seek to speak on the amendment? Gentlelady from Washington, Ms. Strickland.
Thank you, Chairman. I, too, am going to encourage us to vote against this amendment. And speaking out against an amendment is not a personal attack on the person who brought it forward. This is about our responsibility as the United States of America to protect freedom and democracy. And our adversaries right now are watching this, filled with glee that this nation looks divided right now. That President Zelensky first came to visit the House chambers in a bipartisan manner and got multiple standing ovations across the board. And as time has gone on, that support seems to be waning from one side of the aisle. No one wants a war to go on forever, but Vladimir Putin cannot be successful. He must be brought to the negotiating table to do something that is fair, that allows Ukraine to remain a sovereign nation and a democracy. So if we want to put America first, we will support Ukraine. If we want to put America first, we're not going to take health care away from 7 million people or food out of the mouths of hungry children to give tax breaks to billionaires and jack up the debt to $4 trillion. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Does any other member wish to speak on the Mace amendment? There's no further debate. The question occurs on the amendment offered by Ms. Mace. So many as in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. No. Opinion of the chair, the noes have it. All right. The amendment's not agreed to. Committee will come back to order. We will now proceed with amendment log number 5501 by Representative Mace. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from South Carolina seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk will please distribute the amendment. Without objection, the reading of the amendment is dispensed with. The chair now recognizes the gentlelady from South Carolina for the purpose of explaining her amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm offering this amendment because our service members deserve a Department of Defense which prioritizes mission readiness, not divisive ideology. Under the Biden administration, the DoD shifted its focus towards so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI practices. These initiatives are rooted in racism, identity politics, and social engineering. They inject race, gender, and other personal characteristics into processes which should be driven exclusively by merit, by competence, and by capability. DEI isn't about unity, it's about division. It's not about readiness, it's about re-education. Our warfighters were being force-fed identity politics and being indoctrinated by woke policy. They are being taught to hate each other and also be divided along racial lines, rather than united against an enemy. Proponents of DEI claim our Constitution is inherently racist. White warfighters are oppressors by default, and merit is a tool of marginalization and not being, quote, inclusive. Under Lloyd Austin, these policies rotted the soul of our military and atrophied our readiness and capabilities. DEI encourages service members to divide into racial grievance camps rather than view each other with, and also view each other with hostility and distrust. While we focus on imaginary evils, our adversaries are racing towards supplanting us. They're not wasting time and resources on DEI seminars or hiring consultants to lecture their soldiers about privilege. Communist China is not doing that. The Iranian regime is not doing that. Putin is not doing that. While they were building hypersonic weapons, we were building PowerPoint slides on microaggressions. They were modernizing their forces and working to outpace us on every front. Meanwhile, we were training our service members to obsess over race, gender, and pronouns instead of tactics, strategy, and firepower. My amendment would gut the DEI bureaucracy and prohibit it from ever taking root in the DoD ever again. No more DEI offices, no more DEI action plans, no more DEI training. The military's mission is to deter and defeat, not serve as a social experiment for woke ideology. Nothing in this amendment prohibits any American from serving. If you can meet the standard, you can wear the uniform. But the standard must be based on merit, not on identity politics, not on quotas. Rank and promotion must be earned, not awarded based on demographic checkboxes. It must not be based on what you look like. We are in a dangerous global environment. This amendment is about restoring sanity, restoring focus, and restoring discipline to the most lethal military on earth. The American people are tired of watching their taxpayer dollars wasted on woke nonsense. I urge my colleagues to support this amendment. Let's stop this insanity and get back to the mission. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady yields back. Does any member, gentlelady from Washington, Ms. Strickland is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will repeat the thing that I have been saying every time I've responded to this. The most lethal fighting force in the world. I've heard this repeatedly before I got here, and I've heard it repeatedly while I've been here. As we look at what this attempts to do by completely eliminating offices of diversity, equity, inclusion, it actually ignores the fact that we are trying to recruit more people to come into the service. And let's talk about the demographics of the future. More than 40% of service members identify as minorities, and the most recruitable adults by 2027 will be people of color. For those not tracking, that is 2 years from now. The fact is that the military is an employer. When the economy is strong, the military has to compete for talent like every other employer, and telling young people they do not belong will only worsen that recruiting crisis. I come back to the definition of diversity, equity, and inclusion that my colleagues across the aisle are using. The implication is that if it's someone who's a DEI candidate, that they are not qualified, and they are being put there in that leadership position for different reasons. By that definition alone, as I repeated earlier, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, is the ultimate DEI appointee. But as we talk about what the next generation wants, Generation Z represents the leading edge of the country's changing racial and ethnic makeup. A bare majority, 52%, are non-Hispanic white. This generation is projected to become majority non-white by 2026, according to Census Bureau projections. Why we are saying things and making people feel like they are not welcome makes no sense. And I'm going to come back to something, too, especially regarding our military academies and people who want to serve our country. When you're a minority, you actually have to be twice as good to get half as much. And the idea that you are somehow unqualified or less qualified to be there makes no sense. In addition to that, we look at test scores and we look at tests that are taken, and at the same time, you need well-rounded people who know how to navigate the world in a diverse space to create strong fighting teams. We are telling service members that they don't care that minority service members face worse treatment in the military justice system, that Black and Hispanic service members were more likely than white counterparts to face criminal investigation in court-martial. We're saying that the 15 families in the Air Force that had to be relocated in the last 2 years because of racism or anti-LGBTQ harassment don't matter, and that my colleagues believe that they don't belong in the service. So let's be honest here. When I hear something like this, especially given my family's history, my father, an African-American man who served in a segregated military, President Truman desegregated it, I hear anti-Blackness loud and clear. There's a bizarre obsession, in fact, about racism as the first item that is always brought up when we're talking about DEI. We don't talk about the myriad of other things, like gender, like LGBTQ, like life experience. It always seems to be about race. And let's be honest here. When you all are talking about race, you're talking about Black people. So let's just call it out for what it is. When we look at the military and what we need to be strong and to stay strong, we will continue as Democrats to fight for DEI policies. Not because they give anyone preferential treatment, but because we are hiring the best and the brightest and the people who are qualified and want to serve. I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Gentlelady yields back. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Cisneros.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the former Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at the Pentagon, I can confirm that everything my colleague from North Carolina stated is 100% completely false. We did not indoctrinate people. People were not promoted because of their color or their sex. That just did not happen. To me, diversity has always been about creating opportunity. Now, I had a colonel that worked for me. This is an individual who rose through the ranks as an enlisted man, had 2 great careers, I mean, all the way to E8 as an enlisted individual, and then decided to become an officer. And people encouraged him to go this route to become an officer. That's about creating an opportunity, seeing a leader that you have and knowing that he can do more. That's what diversity and inclusion is about, and that's what we promoted. We tried to recruit more individuals into the Pentagon so that it would represent the demographics of our country. But nobody was ever hired due to the fact that based solely on their color or their sex. You still have to perform. And as my colleague stated over here from Washington, more or less, as a person of color or as a woman, you have to perform twice as good as, your counterparts. Look, we have individuals in the military, women outperform their male counterparts in the junior ranks, but do not rise up to the more senior ranks. People of color, especially Latinos and Asians, in the officer ranks, as the promotions go up, their group becomes less and less and less. Well, it goes up for white officers. 95% of our flag and general officer corps is still 95% white men. These are things that we should be looking into as to find the reason why. Why aren't women staying in the military longer if they're outperforming their counterparts? Why is our senior officer ranks not representative of our nation as our junior enlisted ranks are? We need to create opportunity, and that's what diversity and inclusion is, and that's why we need to continue to support these programs, and that's why I don't support this amendment. Our military it is lethal, and it's more lethal. And the Marine Corps even did a study that said diverse groups, diverse platoons perform better than when they're not diverse. So why would we not want to be more lethal and have a diverse team and make it more diverse that represents our nation? And for that reason, I cannot support this amendment, and I will be voting no, and I encourage my colleagues to do the same. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Does any other member seek recognition on the gentlelady from South Carolina's amendment? Chair would state that he supports the amendment. No further debate. The question occurs on the amendment offered by Ms. Mace. So many in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it, and the amendment's agreed to. No, recorded vote is not requested. A recorded vote is requested, and it will be postponed to later.
The passion this afternoon. We talk a lot about the consequences of illegal immigration on American citizens, and rightfully so. It was a nightmare for the American people, many of whom were robbed, raped, and murdered by illegal aliens. Today, we're examining the humanitarian catastrophe for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's open borders cause for children. And South Carolina is not alone. We've had children killed by illegal aliens. We had a sanctuary sheriff in South Carolina just last year who was letting out illegals, not working with ICE, refused to work with ICE, and she was letting out, Kristen Graziano was her name, and she lost her election, rightfully so, in November. But she was letting out illegals who were rapists, murderers, pedophiles, that sort of thing. So open borders are not compassionate, they're cruel. The Biden administration's decision to fling our border wide open and institute catch and release put hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied children at risk of exploitation through sex trafficking, child pornography, narco trafficking, and modern-day slavery. So, Mr. Kafari, a DHS Inspector General, you sounded the alarm on this issue, and I know each and every American thanks you. So my question for you this afternoon is, how many unaccompanied children were lost by the Biden administration?
I believe the figure is 233,000.
And how many unaccompanied children were registered to non-existent addresses or had no address listed at all?
I don't have the exact number on that. There were 31,000 who had invalid addresses.
Okay, and in your review, how frequently did you find numerous children registered to the same address?
Frequently.
And do you believe there were sufficient safeguards in place to prevent these from happening?
No.
As you mentioned, in 2021, the Biden administration removed a requirement HHS provide ICE with biographic and biometric information to vet the sponsors and adult members of the household of unaccompanied minors. They made it easier to hand unaccompanied children to criminals. How many unaccompanied minors the Biden administration handed over to criminals or known cartel associates?
I know that the recent efforts between HHS and DHS have identified 400 sponsors who have been arrested.
In your review, how many sponsors did you identify who are criminals or known cartel associates?
I don't have that figure.
Was ICE able to properly vet sponsors of unaccompanied children for criminal history or cartel ties without biographic or biometric information from ICE?
No, they were prohibited from doing so.
Crazy. Did the Biden administration conduct DNA testing to verify sponsors claiming a familial relation were in fact related to the unaccompanied child?
That's a report that we just published within the last few days. I think the figure was 0.1% of individuals who came to the border had DNA tested.
Did the Biden administration, we did that. Okay, so are you aware DHS has a program called Intensive Supervision Appearance Program, ISAP, to monitor the location of illegal aliens on the non-detained docket, manage cases, and ensure compliance?
Yes.
Okay, do you believe a similar program to track the location of unaccompanied children would reduce the risk of unaccompanied minors being exploited?
It would certainly be very helpful.
Okay, I want to thank you for being here today, and also as someone who has spent my good part of my political career protecting women and children. I want to say that protecting them from illegals who are rapists, murderers, and pedophiles is supremely important. I have authored dozens of bills to protect women and kids. I'm someone who found myself accidentally uncovering possible child sexual abuse material in November of 2023, and I will fight like hell for women and kids everywhere across the country. And I want to be sure that when we're talking about pedophiles, convicted, et cetera, that we think about the making sure that we don't expose who those victims are, who those kids are, that if we are going to release files, that we redact the names of the kids that were involved or the names of the victims. I myself, as a victim, currently today, fighting for justice for myself and other women, I can't express how important that is. But also, how do you traffic 1,000 kids and only have one accomplice? Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. And I'm for full transparency of all pedophiles. I'm for making sure that we go after those who've raped kids, who've done the worst of the worst. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
The gentlelady yields. Is Ms. Mace from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. The government of the District of Columbia, under the leadership sitting in front of us today, has become a poster child for DEI and gender madness. This has led to government. Mr. Chairman, this is not a concert. This audience can just settle down. I want to reclaim my time.
Stop the clock, and the gentlelady's right. Under the rules of the House, the chairman is responsible for maintaining order and preserving decorum in the committee room. I expect audience members to be respectful of the committee, so
I'd like to reclaim my time, too,
you
Mr.
reclaim
Chairman.
it. Absolutely. Ms.
This has
Mace.
led to government-sanctioned racial discrimination and the erasure of women. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 provides Congress plenary authority over the District of Columbia. Using this authority today, I'll be introducing the No DEI in D.C. Act. This bill will rip the DEI and gender bender nonsense out of the D.C. government root and branch and restore common sense and equal treatment under the law. As the individuals charged with writing D.C. laws, signing D.C. laws, and enforcing D.C.'s laws, we have some questions for you on the meanings of some of the curious terms we have found in the D.C. Code. My first question for Mayor Bowser, it's yes or no. The D.C. Code makes numerous references to, quote, structural or institutional racism. Do you believe the D.C. government is structurally or institutionally racist? Yes or no? Yes or no? Is D.C. government racist, institutionally racist? Yes or no? All right, you can't answer the question. So my next question for Mayor Bowser, since you're going to sit there and placate or just be quiet, in Section 7-1234.02 of D.C. Code, you use the phrase child welfare involved birthing people. Child welfare involved birthing people. Can you explain to me what this means?
I'm not that familiar with that part of the code.
Okay, and so you don't know. In Section 7-1234.02 of D.C. Code, you use the phrase justice involved incarcerated and homeless birthing people and their non-birthing partners. Can you explain to this committee what that means?
I would have to see
You
the
don't
whole
know. You're
section.
literally the mayor of D.C. and you don't know your own code of laws.
Well, I don't know
All right,
them
one thing we
verbatim.
noticed the D.C. Code struggles to define is the term woman. So Mayor Bowser, what is a woman?
I'm a woman. Are you a woman?
100%.
Okay.
100%.
I'm a woman. You're looking at one.
Okay, good. You actually, in section 3-703 of the DC Code, you use the phrase, the intersectionality of gender and race to create unique dynamics and effects. Can you explain what this means to the committee?
Where is that, ma'am?
Section 3-703 of the DC Code. Do you know what that means? No,
could
you
you give
don't
me
know
the
what that means.
title
So
of the-
chapter 14D of the DC Code establishes
Mr.
the
Chairman,
commission.
I'm happy to answer questions.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to reclaim my time. This is not her time, it's my time. You can be quiet as I ask you questions, and then you can
recognizes
answer them.
Ms.
And then
Mace.
you can
If
answer
you
them.
would give,
I'm not, Mr. Chairman, this is my time, not hers. I'd like to reclaim my time.
let's make good use of the time, Ms.
Chair
Mace.
I'm making very good
Chair
use of my
recognizes
time.
Ms.
There
Mace.
And you're
is-
Ms. Mace
making
has
my
the
point.
floor.
You're the mayor of DC, and you don't even know your own code of laws. What is a birthing person?
I would assume it's someone who gives birth.
All right. Why don't you use, are these women, are these moms? You think it's appropriate to call them birthing person? Can a man birth a person?
Well,
Be a
that's
birthing
what I
person?
would call it, but I don't write all the laws, and I'm not familiar with every
Can
section.
men get pregnant?
No.
Can men become women?
Can a man become a woman?
Yeah. Can a man become a
you're-
woman?
Miss
Yes
Mace,
or no? Can a man become a woman? Yes or no?
Miss Mace, I'm not here
Okay,
to
my
talk
next
about that.
question, Chapter 14D of the DC Code establishes the Commission on Reparations and a reparations fund to provide eligible African Americans monetary reparations or other forms of redress. Is it the position of DC government benefits should be provided to individuals on the basis of race?
I believe that the legislation requires a study.
Okay, I'm asking you, is it the position of the DC government that government benefits should be provided on the basis of race?
If you're
is the
referring to
question.
that legislation, I believe it requires a study.
Okay, I'm asking you a question. Do you believe that government benefits should be given out on the basis of race? That is the question. This is the third time I'm asking.
We have any number of benefits programs, and eligibility is
Okay.
established.
You're not answering
per-
any of these
per program.
questions. I'll give it to you. You're slick. In Section 2-1383 of the DC Code, you use the phrase social value of the LGBTQ community business economy to the district. Can you explain what this means to the committee?
It means that LGBT businesses provide economic benefit to the district's economy.
Do you think all businesses provide economic benefit to the DC economy?
They should, or they would be out of business.
Yeah, of course. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you. Chair